Is it on? Okay, there we go. Hi. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the University of Northern Colorado and the Monfort College of Business 13th Annual Entrepreneurship Challenge. I'm Emmy Scott, and I'll be your host for this exciting day of competition. A little bit about myself. I'm actually a recent UNC graduate. I just graduated last December with 2 degrees in environmental studies and business management with a minor in communications. I now work as a financial operations director for a nonprofit called Earth Guardians, and I'm really excited to be with you guys here today, and I'm so excited to be back on campus. I also was a winner of the Entrepreneurial Challenge about 2 years ago, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that later. Now I would like to invite Dr. Cher Gibbs, Dean of the Monfort College of Business, to welcome you to this special event.
Thank you so much, Emmy. And thank you all for coming to this exciting event. First, I want to welcome you to the 2022 Entrepreneurial Challenge Finals. My name is Dr. Cher Gibbs. I'm Dean of the Monfort College of Business. And I want to thank everyone who made this event possible today. By participating in the Entrepreneurial Challenge, our students learn from entrepreneurs. They learn from our panel of industry leading judges, which prepares them to be career ready leaders once they graduate. I would also like to thank our sponsors for the 2022 Entrepreneurial Challenge. They include JBS, Envirotech, the High Plains Library District, KUNC, Warm Hugs, and the UNC Biz Hub Collaborative. Also, a huge thank you is due to the Monfort family for their ongoing generosity and contribution to our participant prizes. I'm extremely grateful for their continuing support for this program. I want to thank the judges again. These individuals have generously donated their time and expertise to help our participants enhance their entrepreneurial endeavors. Finally, I want to say thank you to Emmy Scott, our alum and our MC for today, Dr. Dallas Everhart, the director of the Entrepreneurial Challenge, UNC Event Services, and our student managers for their hard work and dedication in putting this event together. Presenting today in the collegiate division is Companies Blue Path, Submission Nutrition, your pianist, Candy Ware, oh, that's an interesting name, Audition Advocates, and Eclecticism. In the open division, we have SARS Lifting, RD Flows, Horizon Vergis, Gelsana Therapeutics, and Slick Tools. I wish all the best to our participants in this event. Before I invite Emmy back to the stage, I just want to say thank you for reinvigorating the entrepreneurial spirit here at UNC and the Monfort College of Business. One thing that I always like to tell my students is that entrepreneurship is the surest way to wealth and true independence. Entrepreneurship happens to be my discipline. I'm an entrepreneurship professor. So it's a pleasure to see all the great new ventures that will be presented here today. So on that note, I want to invite Emmy Scott back to the podium to introduce the judges and go through the schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gibbs. We are so thankful for your continued support of the Entrepreneurial Challenge. Now, I would like to introduce our judges for today's event. First, Bill Dietrich, Executive Director of SAGE, a Northern Colorado Advisory Network. Jay Anderson, CEO of Top Line Acceleration. Don Brown, member of Rocky Venture Club. Matt Estrin, owner and operator of 477 Distilling and Greeley Hatchet House. Jeff Crabtree, founder and owner of Crabtree Brewing. Matthew Hort, Executive Director of High Plains Library. and Lisa Hudson, Director of the East Colorado SBDC and UNC Biz Hub Collaborative. Before we get started, let's just go over a few housekeeping items. Each open division finalist will have 10 minutes to present their business proposition to our judges and you. The audience and each collegiate division finalist will have 5 minutes. Once their presentation is complete, the judges will have 10 minutes to ask questions and provide suggestions to the presenters. At the conclusion of the judges' questions, the presenters will accept a few questions from the audience, with time permitting. And with that, let's get on our way and let's get started. Please welcome our first presenter from the Collegiate Division, Blue Path.
Hello, my name is Piper Kurchowski, and I will be talking about Blue Path. So really simply, Blue Path is an app that's connecting students and faculty with their on-campus police to get from point A to point B safely. So I wanted to start by going on a journey that most college students have to take at one point in time, and that's walking home alone at night by yourself. And I know you know where I'm going with this. We see how this plays out in the news. We have headlines of woman abducted on campus while walking, or person assaulted or mugged for X, Y, or Z reason on campus. And so when we look at current campus safety measures, we can categorize them into one of two groups: proactive and reactive solutions. When you think, let me ask you this question: how often are you told to be proactive, and how often are you told to be reactive? Because I would wager to say that you're more often told to be proactive than you are reactive. And that's because when you're when you're reactive, you're being controlled by a situation. And when you're proactive, you're controlling the situation. The nature of most current campus safety solutions is that they are reactive solutions. And that's where Blue Path comes in. Blue Path is going to reduce the number of steps one has to take when you're in a panicked, distressed, dangerous situation. So I'm not having to pull out my phone and fumble to dial 911. I'm not having to stop and evaluate my surroundings to find a blue light emergency pillar to run to. And so I think the best way to demonstrate Blue Path's proactivity is to continue on our journey, but now with Blue Path at our disposal. So I would pull out my phone, I would enter my phone number, it would connect to my campus ID, and then I would sorry. And then I would ping my location of where I'm going to next. And so in this instance, I'm going from the rec center to a dorm room. So I would find my dorm, I would ping the location, and then I'm going to get a warning message saying, hey, don't go yet until you receive a text confirmation from security. Once I receive that text confirmation, I know I'm being monitored in real time, so I can begin on my path. While I'm on my path, I am being monitored in real time. My velocity changes are monitored, how long I'm standing in a certain spot, all while a simple interface is being used, 2 buttons. And while we hope you only have to use the safely made it to location button, that's why Blue Path's proactive. So if I am in a state of emergency, then I just click the emergency button and police will be dispatched to my location, and my video and audio will be streamed and recorded by the police. So in the future, if it needed to be used for like evidence or just to gather more information about the situation, is there. What we hope happens is that you can click the safely made it to location button, in which you would be disconnected from the police and on your merry way. So Blue Path is providing this real-time connection with students and faculty and police. You're not having to be reliant on the current campus safety measures or other people like friends or family members. It's going to provide you a sense of security because they're going to know what danger you're in and exactly where you are. And Blue Path will evolve as technology advances. So it's not going to become antiquated like the blue light safety pillars we see on campus, for example. Those are from the 1980s. Why are we still relying on 40-year-old technology when cell phones are ubiquitous? And additionally, it's providing up-to-date information to schools and universities on what locations on their campus are they seeing increased incidents of crime. Again, another proactive component. So be proactive, control your journey. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Blue Path. That was awesome. Let's hear it again for Blue Path. So, judges, it's now your turn for any questions.
Can you hear me now? Yep. Great presentation, really well done. Have you talked to students? Have you done any customer discovery or feedback surveys of, does this resonate with your other students?
I have not done surveys to students. However, just through conversations, I have gathered that people a lot of times are not comfortable walking home alone at night, or even myself in some of my experiences. There's certain things that I'm unwilling to do at certain times of night because I'm like, I don't know that I want to be walking home alone at that time. It's just the reality of kind of the current campus safety solutions.
Yes, same positive note on the presentation. I really liked it, the idea. Have you looked into what it would take to implement this on a campus like UNC? What would the security people need to do, that sort of thing?
Yes, so part of, so it would take some developing, having that interrelation between UNC campus security and then also like a software. But the cost of it is not that far. I know you didn't ask directly about the cost, but it's not that far from current, like the blue light emergency towers that are on campus. And a lot of those are being phased out as well because they're not being utilized. I had read an article recently about the University of Indiana, and they had 4 phone calls, legitimate phone calls, on their blue light emergency towers in the past 20 years. So the pros and cons of, is it really, what's the symbolic value of safety versus the actual value for students?
Yeah, my question was going to be around who pays for it, which I think this maybe explains that the college would be buying the app and offer it free to students, or students signing up for the app.
So I foresee this being contracted out to universities for some number of years, licensing the software to them, and then it would be free to students. So I'm sure to navigate buffer the cost, if you will, it would be probably included in student dues.
And then in the presentation, there was a picture briefly of a call center where somebody is actually monitoring a screen. Is that required then at every location that the app is being used?
Yes, that would be required, but part of it is to mitigate the expenditures of the campuses. For instance, I've noticed that if you call campus security, for example, sometimes it's like, oh, you have to wait 10 minutes up to an hour or no one's available. And so this would reduce the number of, it would make it more available to students. So they wouldn't have to be waiting, and then you wouldn't have to worry about how many people do you have staff for security, for instance, because there can be a select number or a couple number of people that can monitor the screen.
And then my last question, have you started developing the software yet?
I have not.
Okay. Lisa Hudson, great idea. I really like this. As a woman who has had to travel at night on campus and elsewhere, I can completely relate to that feeling, that insecurity. And I can believe that this would give some peace of mind to people who want to go from one side to the next. My question for you is, who is your competitor? Is there an app out there currently that does something similar?
Yes, there is. So currently, the competitor that I'm thinking of is called Rave Guardian, but it's more of an emergency proliferation where if something happens on campus, then like for then they would like distribute that knowledge there. So if someone, for instance, was mugged, then the university could send that message to students. Also with that app, it's family and friends that are monitoring you. You can connect them. But again, that's a false sense of security because what is a friend and family member going to do if you're in an emergency situation? Maybe they have your location, but again, that's where I foresee Blue Path, for instance, reducing the number of steps that have to go because you would be connected directly to police instead of to a friend and then a friend to a police. And then the other major one, which isn't an app, would be the blue light safety pillars. Thank you.
Am I understanding correct that the universities who have the blue light emergency towers in place, old technology granted, are they paying something annually to keep that system going, even though it's really underutilized at this point? So, I mean, that to me may be where your budget comes from, right?
Yeah, so currently most annual fees per unit, so per tower, is between $100 and $300. And so depending on the size of the university you have, that can range greatly. I know Penn State, I believe, has phased out of using the blue light emergency towers, and they had spent $1.7 million in the past 15 years on them. And again, weighing how often are they actually utilized, because most students are now calling police instead of running to a blue light emergency tower, for instance. Any other questions?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Just a thought for the future. Have you thought about, once the app's up and live and running, actually handling the monitoring services and offering those is like an add-on to the service?
Oh, I hadn't considered that, but I think that's actually a wonderful idea, because I suppose you wouldn't have to have a monitoring service at your campus, and it could be centralized elsewhere and then connect, kind of like a police dispatch center, essentially.
Doing that too would also probably make it a little bit more feasible for the universities, because they wouldn't have to, bear that cost for the staff.
Yeah, and with training too, then you wouldn't have to train people. Yeah.
From an investment perspective, if I was an investor, how much money do you think you would need to get this thing rolling?
That is a good question. Looking at different app softwares, the cost of development ranges greatly. I foresee this probably being on the higher end of the spectrum, probably closer to 60 grand, to be honest, because of the software needed between the students on their phones and then also with the police or the security centers. So I do foresee it being on the costlier end of that spectrum.
How about the development cost? How much would it cost you if you were going to start this up to develop the software, the apps, and so on?
I do think that to begin, it would probably be in the range of, I'm assuming 20 grand or so, but I'll be honest, I haven't looked into that as much. Thank you.
I think we have time for some audience questions. Awesome. Does anybody have questions for Blue Path? And if you do, you could just raise your hand and we'll bring you a mic, right? Don't be shy. Great. Back there in the back.
Right now it is just me. If, to go forward, I would need someone who can develop software, and then on the other part of it, marketing, because I think I know that this will be the further will be the next step in technology, just because phones are ubiquitous and that is where technology needs to move. But for sure, someone to develop the app. Thank you. I'm unsure. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent question. I have considered that. That would be, I would have to collaborate with an app, whether that be Google. That's what I kind of foresee it being, Google, just because that can be used on various devices. So that would definitely need to be considered. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Blue Path. You did an amazing job. Now let's welcome our second presenter from the open division, Saris Lifting.
Keeping a job site safe and productive is one of the hardest jobs in the world. Too often, safety is traded for productivity and vice versa. This happens every day. And while the consequences are usually financial, they can also be fatal. This is a personal problem for me because my dad's been in construction his whole life. Before I could walk, I'd been in the operator's seat of a 300-ton crawler crane, and I proudly managed a fleet of Tonka trucks from my bedroom. Thanks to my dad, I've always loved heavy construction equipment, but I've also been acutely aware of the risks that heavy equipment introduces to a job. When my dad was about the same age that I am now, he was nearly killed at work by a piece of heavy equipment. In this accident, the difference of just a few feet would have cost him his life. Despite the introduction of so much new technology, construction remains the most dangerous industry in the United States, suffering from a fatality rate that has not decreased in over 15 years. And poor safety goes hand in hand with poor productivity, something costing the construction industry over $1.5 trillion every single year. The core of this problem is in the planning tools that we use before a job gets underway. Before a project begins, everything can be clearly defined by a sequence of sexy computer models. The problem is that a few years into a project, things look quite a bit different. Every hazard in construction arises from the moment that we make a necessary departure from the initial plan. And this is especially true when we have a large number of specialty subcontractors coming and going from a job site on a daily basis. These subcontractors need planning tools that are agile enough to keep up with a changing job site and smart enough to identify hazards before they impact the safety and the productivity of the construction project overall. Today, I'm going to introduce to you how we are putting this concept into practice with one of the biggest, most expensive, and most dangerous pieces of equipment on any project: the crane, the backbone of any major construction job. These machines rely on careful planning to do their job safely. This is evidenced by the fact that almost 40% of critical crane failures were a result of poor lift planning. And I'm not talking about a broken windshield. I'm talking about hundreds of tons of steel falling from the sky into a busy downtown street. To understand the root cause of this problem, let's take a look at the planning tools used before anything goes in the air. Crane companies must rely on a bunch of disjointed software, handwritten notes, phone calls, emails, in order to piece together a comprehensive lift plan. Furthermore, frustrating communication challenges between all the different stakeholders involved in these operations further complicate the process, exposing everyone to unnecessary risk and consuming valuable time. In fact, a big lift company will spend 250,000 hours a year just preparing for their lifting operations. The problem here is it creates a dangerous incentive to cut corners during the planning phase, exposing everyone to risk. And it doesn't just affect our customer, the heavy lift contractor, but it also affects their customer, the general contractor. Like I said, everyone needs to put in a ton of time to make sure that we're all on the same page before anything goes in the air. My point is, it's not easy. And safety should be easy. Still, it's astonishing that there is no purpose-built solution for this problem. Until now, LiftPro is the first comprehensive heavy lift planning, estimating, and execution software. With LiftPro, safety is easy. We empower our customers to cut their planning time in half while making the whole job site significantly safer. Let me step you through how this product works. First, our mobile-friendly web app replaces note-taking and pacing off of dimensions during the initial job walk. Next, a lift planner or a project engineer can add more detail to the plan, such as rigging design, crane selection, and operator certifications. An optional 3D simulation can be included to clearly demonstrate how the job should play out. When the plan is done, it can be electronically circulated to be approved. Finally, when the crane is mobilized, the operator and his or her team will have a step-by-step mobile-friendly lift plan detailing exactly how things should go. With automated calculations, a mobile-friendly workflow, and collaboration features, we're going to save our customers $300 on every single thing that they pick up. This doesn't include the time savings for their customer, the general contractor, nor does it include the cost of accidents and delays due to poor lift plans and miscommunication. With our industry partners, we are iterating and building out LiftPro every single month. In just a few months, we'll see our first revenue and scale beyond our early adopters to address the broader market. Ultimately, LiftPro can be a test bed to trial more advanced automation and artificial intelligence for construction documentation. We've been out of the building and we've been talking to our customers. Today, we've completed over 100 industry interviews, including safety specialists, general contractors, crane companies, and insurance companies. And I'm excited to share with you today that we actually have 4 letters of intent from crane companies who are using a basic version of our product right now. LiftPro is priced at $1,000 for an owner-operator annually, going up to $30,000 annually for an enterprise customer. Additional planning capacity and 3D modeling are available at an added cost. Like I said, we expect to see our first revenue later this year, and we'll double our customer base annually for the next few years to fully penetrate the heavy lift market. The heavy lifting market is terribly underserved by software, with just a few slow-moving incumbents. These companies have failed to address multiple customer needs. Specifically, they don't offer the ability to work on mobile, nor do they offer the ability to work collaboratively across a team. This is unacceptable for our customers who spend 80% of their time in the field working across massive teams. Anyway, lift planning is about a $500 million market annually in the United States. Globally, there's a much larger and rapidly growing construction market in need of better lift planning tools. On the way to this $5 billion opportunity, there are multiple chances to offshoot to other parts of construction documentation or to exit early to a construction management software company. We're backed by some fantastic advisors with decades of experience in academia, entrepreneurship, software, and construction. I've been around construction my whole life, and I worked a few different jobs in this industry when I was getting my degree in electrical and computer engineering. We're a young company, but I'm extraordinarily proud of our success so far. We've raised some initial capital, we've built a product, we've got it into the hands of our customers. Today, I'm raising $400,000 to get Lift Pro into the market and in the hands of customers by the end of this year. Currently, there's just under $200K of allocation left in this round. I want to meet with investors who are excited about the future of construction technology and passionate about making a difference in the lives of the people that build our world. We're on a mission to make safety easy for the construction industry. I invite you to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Amazing job. Judges, any questions?
Yeah, so the letters of intent basically detail what's been implemented so far in the initial prototype and what we plan to implement in the next iteration of the product, and saying that they are willing to make a purchasing decision based on the successful implementation of those features. Yeah, believe it or not, this started as an automated fire truck ladder. We were building a system for the big rescue aerials to deploy to a window just by taking essentially a laser pointer and pointing and shooting at where you want to deploy. And after some conversations with firefighters, we realized, that this is not something they would pay for. So we said, okay, maybe in construction there's an opportunity. So we started talking to people in construction, and it was probably the 35th interview that somebody said, hey, like, I don't know about automating cranes. I don't know about that, but it was this kind of old school crane manager guy. And he was like, but could you download a load chart into your software? Because load charts are such a pain to read. And that's what got us into this lift planning space and said, oh, there's a huge opportunity here to streamline this process. Definitely. So the question was, what's the strategy for protecting the idea and the IP? I'd say it's twofold. On the legal side, it's essentially trademarking it and getting patents where we can. We do have a patent on the initial boom automation system that inspired this idea, a provisional patent, and we're going to seek the full utility on that. And then not on the legal side, but the other side is essentially relationship building with the other potential competitors, and trying to bring them in close and figure out ways that we can partner and help them in their business, so that they have a lot to gain from our success rather than just re-implementing what we've done. Okay. Yeah, great question. I love this one. So my former co-founder was from India, and we were trying to come up with a name for this company, and it was kind of in the early stage. We weren't sure what we were doing. We were like, he said, well, Saris means crane in Hindi, and it would be really cool if we end up doing something related to cranes, but if we don't, it just sounds like a generic tech company name. So it'll work either way. Yeah, I think the thing here is, we've got all the standard like cloud software security protocols implemented, minus two-factor authentication. The thing here is it's not, there's nothing to gain by changing a load chart. These are the specifications for how a crane operates, and what it can do. And, there's nothing to be gained by changing that data. The only thing that I kind of am on the lookout for is if we start processing payments through our software, then that's going to become a much bigger priority, because, we don't want our customers being hacked and stolen from. Yes, somebody could, in theory, if they wanted to destroy a job site, they could, go in and hack into it and change, if they could get by, the standard security features we have, and, change the plan so that the crane would tip over. And that's all given. There's a few other fail safes that have to pass. I mean, the operator would have to not realize something's been changed, and the automated safety systems in the actual piece of equipment, those would also have to fail, and that would result in a major accident. Yeah. Okay. Cool. They could still view the plan. So in the demo video, when you type in an email and hit, send, it just sends a link that will let you see like an electronic version of the plan. So that's all those stakeholders will have a copy of that. Thanks. No, so they're free. We've been discussing pricing, but the consensus is they're not willing to pay until a certain feature set has been built out. Yeah. So that was actually on the LOIs. There was pricing on that initially saying, at the end of 1 month, you can start paying for this. And then there was a little pushback. And I said, we'll leave a number off of it. There's a really great conversation, a lot of great conversations that came out of putting pricing on the LOIs. And we kind of negotiated to what would make sense given features X, Y, and Z. But there was a lot of hesitation around putting their name on something with a pricing on it due to the nature of the industry.
Is this your full-time job? Are you doing something else, or is this it for you?
I do a little dog sitting on the side, but yeah.
That's awesome. Help me, for somebody who doesn't understand the construction industry, how does crane planning make it so that thousands of pounds of metal doesn't fall out of the sky? I mean, you kind of made that connection, but I guess I'm having a hard time seeing how the planning of it would keep a crane from failing when it's working.
Sure. So I'll kind of give two examples. Two scenarios. One is when they're just not doing a plan because it takes too long. I've talked to guys who I ask them, do you write lift plans for your jobs? And they're like, oh, no. If a customer asks for that, I tell them to screw off. Like they're a, modern person that I don't want to work with. There's that kind of attitude that can lead to, going out and just trying to do the lift without doing the physical analysis. And then when it does tip over, the response is, it happens. It's construction. This is normal for our industry. By making it really simple to do a lift plan on your phone, we can hopefully avoid some of those scenarios where they don't cross their T's and dot their I's. Those tend to be on the owner operator end of the market. The other scenario, which is more common across the whole market, and tends to result in those critical lifts, the really major accidents, is they write a lift plan, they get it ready, they send it out, and they get to the job site and things look different. There's a stack of steel, on the crane pad, and they have to set it up to the side. And, when they're under the gun, they're not going to take time to go back and call their engineering department and have that plan rebuilt. They're going to say, we can figure it out. We can get it done. And so the way we address that is by integrating with the general contractor's project management softwares. So like Autodesk or Procore, any of the modern things that are used on the GC side. And so when the GC makes a change to their job site, and they tend to be the most progressive in the industry in terms of tracking their data, we can send a text message to the crane company and say, hey, this change order happened on the job site. When you arrive next week, things are going to look different. You need to revisit this. And to some extent, we could even automate that modification to the lift plan if it's a simple enough change.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for your questions. We're actually out of time. Do we have time for audience questions, or should we? Awesome. So we can open it up to the audience for a few questions.
Totally. So I'm in that round. We're giving investors pretty good terms. So giving up between 20 to 25% of the company, and I own the rest. And yeah, the 400,000 will get us essentially 2 engineers immediately, and then another kind of customer-facing engineer, sales person at about 6 to 9 months from now. And that we'll be able to afford that team for 13 and a half months. which should be more than enough time to get built what we need to build. So currently we're targeting a return for our investors in about 3 years. So doing an earlier exit, and we're raising primarily from angels, so that we don't have to, tell a multi-billion-dollar story, and everybody can do well quickly.
We have time for probably one quick question. Anybody else?
I'll take the question. Yeah.
Okay.
So I can imagine if I were building a 100-story building in New York City that there's be some regulation on things. So how's the regulatory space play into this, or how do you play into the regulatory space?
Right. So I've talked to the committee that writes standards for lift planning in OSHA, or writes standards for heavy lifting at OSHA. And their thinking is lift planning is too not standardized. It's too hard to standardize, so it's too hard to write a regulation around it. That's kind of where that conversation stands. But on the insurance side, insurance companies have this pain point where they don't know what's going on the job site. They say, hey, you have to have a lift plan, but they don't have a way to verify that. There's not a ton of transparency between the subcontractors and the insurance companies. So that is something that I really want to pursue. And I think it could extend far beyond cranes to everything on the job site. But making that transparent so they know, boxes are being checked.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Saris Lifting. You did an amazing job. Let's hear it for Saris Lifting one more time. Great job. You did so good. Now let's welcome our third presenter of the collegiate division, Submission Nutrition.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Henry Alvizo, and I am the owner of Submission Nutrition. So what this brand is premium nutritional food products for combat athletes. I've been a martial artist all my life, wrestled throughout high school, and over the last 5 years, I've gotten involved in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mixed martial arts. And throughout this journey, I've realized how big of a factor nutrition is. So I decided to proceed with creating my own company. What you guys have there is my first product that I've developed is the overnight oatmeal, which is an organic, nutrient-dense oatmeal product that makes it convenient and quick to get some good food into your system. So the problem for fighters, usually they're going to be pretty busy people. Usually they'll be having full-time jobs. It's more of a hobby for most people. So with the intense training, usually you have higher nutritional and calorie intake needs, which is something I came across myself. You're kind of always hungry when you're training pretty hard, usually 2-hour training sessions, 3 to 5 times a week. And nutrition can make or break a fighter. If you're not eating well, you're not feeling well, you're not fighting well. Pretty important. And another part of that is the weight cuts and weight management. You have to make certain weight classes. So it is important that your nutrients, your diet and your nutrition be on point. So my primary target audience is going to be combat athletes, male and female, and martial arts hobbyists. Usually what I've seen with people I train with and people I see at competitions, usually the primary is 18 to 40 years old, but I have seen much older people compete. I've seen people in their 70s. There's a lot of children who are competing, anywhere from 4 to 10 years old. and of course teenagers, but my primary target audience is going to be that 18 to 40 range. My sales channels currently is direct to consumer. So currently I'm selling on my website, submissionnutrition.com. My current product offering is the overnight oatmeal. So this isn't, like I said, it's an organic, all natural product, nutrient dense, and kind of one of the main selling points here is the convenience and value. So the way you prepare the products is you pour some of the oatmeal into a container. I like to fill it with almond milk, a little bit of honey or maple syrup, and by the time you wake up in the morning, it's ready to go. It's a pretty popular product, but I did want to develop it myself because I saw there was a market gap. There's a lot of oatmeal companies, but I did not see too many overnight oatmeal products, and this was something that I felt it was easy to manufacture, easy to develop, and I saw a market gap for it, so I went ahead. Usually, it cost me anywhere from about $2.75 to $3 to produce one bag, and I'm selling them for $7.99 on my website. My marketing strategy right now, the main thing is going to be the use of sponsorships and brand ambassadors. So I'm working with a lot of fighters right now. I pretty much just send them free product, and they're sharing it on their social media platforms, primarily Instagram right now. The biggest thing is content creation to bring attention to the brand has been a pretty strong marketing point. Of course, paid online advertising, so buying ads on social media channels, and having a presence at tournaments and in gyms has been pretty effective as well. And those are two people there who are got Chrissy and Ellis. Ellis actually held his own tournament, and I helped sponsor it. I just gave all the fighters free oatmeal, and Chrissy's there repping one of my shirts, and she had actually won a national title in jiu-jitsu, so it's been fun working with them. I did a SWOT analysis just to kind of break it down. Some of my strengths here are I have a strong connection and understanding of the consumer, just because I personally feel myself that I am my own consumer, and I've been around these people all my life, so I feel like I know what they want, and I'm able to get direct feedback by talking to them. There's a strong community of support, so a lot of these fighters see the brand and they feel a strong connection to it, and they want to see me succeed. I've had people reach out to me wanting to help in various ways. I feel since I am such a young and agile company, I'm able to pivot and kind of change directions moving forward if need be, and kind of strategize a lot quicker than other larger brands are able to do. I do have, it's a unique brand. You know, there's not very many natural food brands that have branding like this to where it's dedicated to a very certain demographic like fighters and martial artists. So this is the first brand that I've seen do something like this. And company values, I'm proud of the product I've made, and I want to help people through nutrition. So that's strong values for me. Some of my weaknesses right now, I'm currently just a one-man team. I do have a full-time job on the side, and I'm also a full-time college student, so that'd be the biggest drawback for myself. And being a new brand, it does take time to build customer trust and connection with an audience. The opportunities here would be to expand to new sales channels, something like Amazon.com. I could be selling in stores, which I'm not right now. It's all direct to consumer. And I could just refine the branding a little better, provide better content. So the threats right now is, as we're kind of seeing inflation right now, the rising cost of food and ingredients can kind of cut into my margins. And if a larger competitor were to enter the space and start marketing towards fighters and these Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu athletes, I feel like that could be a threat to my small business. So my vision for the future is, I feel like right now the overnight oatmeal is just the introductory product of what I've created. It's somewhat of a representation of the brand and what this could be. But my vision is to create a full set of nutritional products, including nutrition bars, superfood powders, granolas and trail mixes, seasoning, sauces, marinades, and meal plans. And what I like about this is once I already have the first product, the overnight oatmeal, say I buy a 50-pound bag of oatmeal, I can reuse that same 50-pound bag to make a granola or to make bars. So all of these ingredients I already have in hand are reusable, and I don't have to stretch myself so much. So if I do win any funds today, that money would go to the development of new products, any marketing efforts moving forward, and of course purchasing ingredients, which can get pretty costly. And here's a little bit of the community that I wanted to show. Got a bunch of fighters out there repping my brand. This is not all of them, but these are some cool pictures that were sent over to me. I've got people in Florida, New Jersey, Virginia, Texas, here in town in Greeley. So I've got a pretty strong community of fighters all supporting me and wanting to see this brand succeed. And it's been a lot of fun creating this, and it's been a dream of mine to create a natural food brand. And yeah, so thank you guys.
Thank you so much. You did an amazing job. So now questions from the judges.
So well done. You got off to a really good start here. So nice job. So how big is the market? I mean, you've kind of defined what it is. Have you sized to see how big that is?
Not necessarily. I just know from my experience from going to tournaments and seeing the growth of the mixed martial arts. You can see sports like the UFC and the explosion of mixed martial arts is kind of what gained my attention. Just going to tournaments myself and going to these competitions pre-COVID, even just in Denver, I would go out to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions, and you'd probably see anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 people just walking around in a smaller city like Denver. So I've been to competitions in Las Vegas where it's a world championship situation, a 3-day tournament, and you could see anywhere from 10 to 20,000 people walking around. So I haven't necessarily looked at how big the market is, but I have put myself in settings where I can see how many people are interested in this and how many gyms are just in the local area. So I don't have any specific numbers for you.
How much have you sold?
Right now, in my first year, I did about $5,000 in sales just online.
And did you look at what percentage of those people actually bought for a second time?
No. So I do see that people are repurchasing. Some people are on their 3rd, 4th, and 5th orders just in the last year. But people, when they try it, they like it and they buy again, because it does bring value to your life when you have something that works with your diet, something that's clean and organic and makes you feel good, and it tastes really good. I'm sorry I didn't bring you guys samples, but it's actually a very tasty product, and a lot of people do repurchase.
Our next question can come from Jeff Crabtree. Go ahead.
Great presentation. I love it. In my world, packaging sells everything, and your packaging right up front looks top-notch professional. I would think that this came from a multinational conglomerate. So well done. That poses a question of, are you contract packaging this, or are you doing this at a commissary kitchen yourself?
Yes, I'm doing it at a commissary kitchen myself. Yeah. So the packaging, I had this idea. It went through a couple iterations. The first kind of design that I went through, it was just really bad. Like if I showed it to you guys, I'd be kind of embarrassed about it. So I scratched that. I spent some money on that, and it was a total waste. So I went to the store. I kind of looked at what other competitors were offering, what design elements they were bringing, and I saw where I was falling behind. So I scratched the first packaging design, and I moved forward with another cleaner version, which you see there. And this was something I designed, and then I hired a professional designer to kind of tweak it and make it look good. But this was kind of my idea.
Great. So being in a commissary kitchen, if your breakthrough plan to get into a Kroger or natural grocers, this would fit in really well. What is your ramp up strategy that landing one of those large national accounts, they're going to need something quick and fast. What is your strategy in getting those type of products to the market?
Are you asking like in terms of
Yeah,
producing?
did that make
larger
any
volume?
sense at all? Sorry.
Okay.
So being in a commissary kitchen, your ability to produce 10 units a week is one thing, but if you landed a natural grocers, what is your plan to ramp up that production? Because you couldn't do that necessarily in a commissary kitchen. Have you evaluated any other channels to get that supply to those new potential larger accounts?
So the kitchen I'm at right now actually has industrial grade equipment that I could produce in large quantities. Something like this oatmeal is very easy to produce. It's literally just mixing ingredients and bagging and sealing it. With a couple people helping me, I could produce at a much larger scale. Right now, you know, say I do a 4-hour shift, I could probably produce 100 bags by myself. But you know, and that's just by myself. So if I get other people that are helping me, like I said, this is a pretty easy product to manufacture. But if we were to go nationwide and sell across stores across the country, I could look into co-packing options.
My last statement, and more of a suggestion, is I would not look at additional products yet. I would really grow this product. You have something that you can sell. The second you start diluting the brand and having too many cogs in the system, you might not be as profitable. I would suggest really focusing on this and then developing in the future.
Okay.
Great presentation though.
Thank you.
2 questions. Who are your competitors for overnight oats specifically?
So for overnight oats, you can look at like Bob's Red Mill, a product like that. There are like other people like Quaker and there's another brand like Amy's Oats and stuff like that. So there are smaller, I wouldn't really say smaller, but like Quaker, they do have oats. The difference between mine and them is mine is a lot higher quality. Why? Because I can invest more money per product, where they have to cut down on their profit margin because they have to produce a product that's lesser quality just to make more money because they are distributing at a higher amount, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And then last question, how did you decide on the flavors? Did you do a market study on preferences?
Yeah, no, I definitely looked at other flavors that were being offered in oatmeal and stuff like that. But these were all flavors that I just came up with myself. And basically, I looked at my ingredient suppliers and what they were offering. I got a list of ingredients of what they have, and I pretty much just picked from there and did combinations and ran through different tests and just developed it myself. I've worked in kitchens all my life, so I have a pretty decent sense of taste and cooking and working with food. And I consider myself a foodie, so these were flavors that I enjoyed and I tried, and everybody who I've given it to has enjoyed as well. So yeah, it was basically, I developed them all myself, and I did look at the market and compared.
Yeah, this is more of a comment as well. I really like the SWOT analysis in your presentation. There's a lot of startups that don't see what's out there, and so I think you're grounded here in terms of what you're up against. So anyway, just
thank you.
Have you considered any sort of subscription to some of your customers? My wife and I are into the health food kick, and a lot of things we have on a monthly subscription, even offering like $1 off to if you subscribe for once a month delivery or something like this.
Yeah, I have considered it. I haven't implemented it into my website. But definitely I do want to move forward with the subscription service.
Yeah, I love this. We're huge overnight oats fans. Nice. And to your question, there is no product that is an overnight oat product on the shelf. There's things that you can get and make it yourself, but there's nothing that's advertised as overnight oats.
Exactly, and that was one of the things I looked at, like, because when I started this brand, basically I wanted to start with nutrition bars, and I couldn't get the recipe quite right. So I kind of looked at it and said, what is the next product that I can make that's easy to develop, that there's kind of a market gap for, and that I enjoy, that I was proud of. So I did move forward with the overnight oats because, you know, there's not too many of those on the shelves right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Jeff also mentioned that he could take you at some point. Yeah. He said,
let's go.
I'm going to ask the same question I asked before. How did the submission name, how did that come up? And I guess I'm ignorant on overnight oats. Why is overnight better or advantageous versus, you know, they'll put it on the stove and just boil it up, right?
Yeah, of course. So the submission name came because the martial art that I see growing right now is Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's what I'm most passionate about, and that's what I'm seeing. There's a huge growth of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu enthusiasts right now. A lot of it came from Joe Rogan, always talking about it on his podcast. So in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you win by submitting your opponent in either a chokehold or some sort of arm lock or leg lock or something like that. So by submitting your opponent. So submission nutrition, it rhymes, it's catchy. I did trademark it. It's a very strong name, and people are kind of catching on to it. Yeah, and I'm sorry, what was your other question?
What's the difference? I mean, I grew up eating oatmeal, but I'd never heard of overnight.
Yeah, so overnight oats, it's kind of like a cold cook process. So as they soak overnight, the oats break down. So versus breaking down the oats with heat and hot water, this actually just soaks overnight, and it creates what's called like cold starches, and those are pretty good for like your gut health, and it creates a nice, like, not necessarily like mushy consistency, but it just cooks the oats a little bit different. If you've never tried it, you can keep it back for yourself and try them tonight. But yeah, yeah. Thank you guys.
We do overnight oats every day. Right. Just keep them in the fridge.
Thank you so much. I love overnight oats, by the way. Definitely a trend that I had to jump on when it started becoming popular. Any questions from the audience? Yes.
Yeah, so the flavors I have right now, my best seller is the pineapple coconut, which is like toasted coconut chips and then fresh pineapple that it's fresh dried, so I grind it up myself. And then I have a mulberry goji walnuts, a muesli, and then chocolate almond and cacao nibs. And then I just have like a plain flavor, so people can kind of make their own creation off of that. So 5 flavors. Yes, sir. Yeah, so a commissary kitchen, what that is basically a professional kitchen space that has already been licensed for food products to be created. So something like this, you can't just make it in your house and start selling online. You have to work in a place that is dedicated for food products, for it to be safe, and for you to follow all the regulations set by the health department. Yeah, so the primary thing I looked at as far as like evaluating what nutritional needs the fighters need, mainly focused around my own needs, which was high carb. I feel like carbs are one of the most important nutrients you can take in, not only as a human, but especially as a fighter, because they're a quick burning source of energy. So something like this oatmeal, you can take it 2 hours, you can eat it like 2 hours before you go and work out, and you're gonna feel good, and those carbs are gonna fuel you with a proper fuel source. Yeah. And they also have like hemp seeds, chia seeds, and flax seeds, a lot of healthy fats, protein, and fiber. So it's all made myself. So I just make sure, I look over everything I make. There's nobody else there to really do any sort of quality control, but I do make sure as I produce the product that it's made up to my standards, which are pretty high. I want to make sure that every time somebody purchases my product, it's going to be high quality. There's going to be nothing wrong with it. So if that answers your question, I think. All right. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Submission Nutrition. And before we go to a break, we're going to have one last presenter, so bear with us, and then we'll take a short break right after. We'll welcome our 4th presenter from the Open Division, RD Flows.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this cold, wet morning. All right. There we go. So my name is Stefan. I'm here to present RD Flows. It's a lab as a service marketplace to connect businesses with university labs to handle their analytical testing. So RD Flows was started by Claudius to help address a major problem that all universities face: the high service contract costs for university lab equipment. Universities, being on the forefront of scientific research, have tens of millions of dollars worth of lab equipment, and they must pay millions of dollars each year just to maintain them. While some of this money is recouped when they receive scientific research grants, for the most part, it is a sunk cost. However, these machines are also underutilized, which creates an opportunity to create them to a revenue generating asset by opening up their services to external clients such as businesses. However, there's a problem. First, university lab directors do not have the bandwidth nor the skill set to develop external clients. They're specialized in running labs in an academic setting, not developing customers like customer-facing businesses are. There are also administrative bottlenecks. Universities are very siloed. The departments are very siloed. It's great for an efficient operating academia. However, it is not very friendly for businesses. Many times might not know who to contact whenever they have issues. Lastly, universities are mandated to prioritize internal research over external research. This poses a problem for universities, for businesses, when they need to manage tight timelines, if they don't know when their results will be returned. And this is where RD Flow comes in. We aim to create a marketplace that will address the needs of both universities and businesses. For universities, we will handle their marketing and create a business pipeline through our platform. Through an easily navigable website, businesses will be able to find universities that have the services they need and the bandwidth that have this to handle their testing. Should administrative issues arise, we will know the right person for a business to contact. And most importantly, by having a network of universities, we will be able to handle the overflow should a university be unable to meet a timeline, be it due to prioritizing internal research or because equipment is down. To summarize, universities get a new revenue pipeline and businesses get access to high quality research at a lower cost. Now let's look at the opportunity. About $23.5 billion was spent in lab testing services in 2021. The university's share of that, less than 1%. And this is without any effort made in marketing or business development. We believe that we can grow this number to win universities a much larger portion of the revenue. Additionally, industry revenue is expected to increase to $26.7 billion by 2026. As the economy bounces back from the COVID shutdowns, corporate revenue is expected to increase. As businesses develop and produce more products, there will be an increased need to meet government regulations. Also, this industry is very fragmented. Only two companies control less than 10% of the market, so there's no clear market leader. And lastly, the barriers to entry for this industry is very high due to the high capital costs needed to purchase equipment and to hire qualified employees. Universities, however, are very well positioned in this industry because they already have the equipment and staff to handle the internal research. Next, I would like to talk about our target market. For universities, we'll work with Tier 1 public universities. These are universities that have doctoral programs in sciences and are focused in heavy academic research. And with that, they will have all the equipment needed for such research. For businesses, we will target small to medium-sized manufacturing companies. These are companies that already outsource because they do not have the resources to develop their own internal R&D departments. Then there are funded startups. These are startups that need to get to market quickly and do not have the time nor resources to develop their own R&D departments. Lastly, we have consultant chemists and engineers. This group of consultants work closely with the legal profession, serving as expert witnesses in testing materials. As independent consultants, working with contract labs gives them great flexibility. We have identified this target market because they have two things in common: a need for low-cost research and the ability to meet project timelines. RD Flows will be able to deliver these for them. And next, we have a look at the competition. We have no direct competitors. There's no other organization that's trying to create a marketplace of university lab services. Our closest competitor is arguably Science Exchange, which is a marketplace of private labs. However, they're mostly focused on with large pharmaceutical companies and handling large research projects. There's also the independent third-party laboratories that would compete with universities for providing lab testing. I believe that we are in a very strong competitive advantage. First, universities have a much lower cost structure than private labs. The only thing universities look to cover are their service contracts. Equipment, rent, and labor, these are all already part of universities' normal operating costs. We also specialize to work with universities as partners. Science Exchange has tried to work with universities. However, universities no longer are willing to work with them. They try to treat universities without dealing with their special needs of lack of customer support, for example. There's a bad experience overall for universities, and again, those bridges have been burnt. Another advantage that we have is that alumni want to give back to their alma mater. A lot of times, these heads of researchers in business have spent a lot of time in universities during their graduate and doctoral programs, and they are well aware of the financial challenges that universities face. They are eager to give back to their communities when they can. Lastly, we have a lot of support for our vision. We want to create strong research hubs throughout each state, much like North Carolina's famed Research Triangle. By creating strong local academic industry relations, we can create a great pipeline for talent and foster a collaborative relationship to advance scientific knowledge. As the saying goes, a rising tide floats all boats. And here's a look at our revenue model. It's fairly simple. Initially, it will take 10% of the revenue we generate for universities. We'll also charge 10 to 20% service fee for businesses, essentially splitting the cost down the middle. If this model looks familiar, it is very similar to the online food delivery platforms, where they charge a percentage, where they take a percentage of sales from restaurants and charge a service fee for their customers. Down the road, we plan on offering consulting services to universities to help them maximize their revenue. And we are exploring the creation of a used equipment marketplace. Universities need the latest equipment to advance scientific research. By generating enough revenue for them, they can justify purchasing one sooner. We can then list their old equipment for sale to businesses that have made a decision to slowly build out their own internal R&D departments. As you can see, we've already taken part in several entrepreneurship programs. We plan to have our first university partnership actually wrapped up pretty soon and have our front-end platform developed by the end of the first half of the year. This will enable us to start generating revenue in the second half. Our MVP is to first partner with the university to catalog their services, implement research standardization, and to simplify contracts. Once we have that, we just need a customer-facing website to list the services available. With those two in place, we are up and running to market and generate sales. We are already working with CSU, and winning this competition will help us fund phase 1 of our front-end platform development. Our financials are based off the conservative assumption that universities currently generate about $1 million annually from external clients. Conservatively, we believe we can grow this by 25% year after year. While we may initially only generate about $250,000 in revenue from our first university, our business model is extremely scalable and becomes stronger as more universities are brought on due to a network effect. We are looking for about $350,000 in funding for platform development, legal assistance to work on simplified contracts, and for marketing. Our platform development can be broken down to phases. The initial phases are MVP with a well-designed front-end platform. The end goal is to have a fully automated platform, but that can be developed with time and resources as we grow. We're in the process of applying for other grants as well. The better funded we are, the easier it will be for us to develop our platform and scale quicker. And lastly, our team. Teamwork makes the dream work. Here's a look at our team. Claudius has almost 20 years of working as a university lab director and has a strong network of lab directors at other universities that we have already begun to tap into. We have advisors with a lot of experience in industry-specific labs. and our current legal help from CU's Entrepreneurial Law Clinic have been instrumental in developing strong legal foundation. The one area we lack right now is someone to oversee platform development. By winning this competition, we look to bring someone on to help with this. Okay. Thank you very much, and I guess we'll be open for questions.
You did a great job, and we're now going to open up to questions from the judges.
Bill, go ahead. Do you have a question?
Yeah, great presentation. Can you give us some examples in terms of what a company looking for services or equipment might want? So are they looking for an electronic box, or are they looking for, you know, like a wet lab, a complete, you know, thing? What are you envisioning that to be?
So currently we're looking at small, medium-sized manufacturing companies. So for example, if you're producing optics, you might need to do quality control or just to make sure certain metrics are met. If you're doing CBD, for another example, and you come up with a new process, you want to do quality control to make sure that you've identified all the substances that are inside the oil. So it would depend on the company, but again, that is the great thing about working with universities, is that they're very well equipped to handle a multitude of different types of testing services. Yes. That's correct, yes. We've actually had a conversation with the AVP of research at CSU about 2 weeks ago. And right now we're actually in the process of developing, I guess, a memorandum of understanding, or some kind of, not a formal legally binding contract, but a document to state that we are, yes, there we go, to just kind of formalize a partnership and to kind of state that we are going to be working together going forward. So right now, our legal team from the CU Entrepreneurial Law Clinic is working on that, and we hope to hear back from them shortly. But CSU is very, very interested, yes. I believe the first one with CSU will be very unique in the sense that because they are being our test, our beta or alpha clients, there will be a bit of give and take of understanding exactly how this relationship should work. It won't be exactly the same, but with the knowledge that we gain from working with CSU, we can then create a more standardized contract with other universities.
Would it be easier to sell a product like this, which I really like, because as a small manufacturer, I don't have the access to the laboratory that the universities have, but would it be beneficial to change the price structure? Because at the end of the day, I'm still paying for the service. And the university, this would be a positive externality with creating additional income. Why not charge the university more percentage and not to the end user? So I would look at it as a zero barrier, and you would be my director to all these universities.
So one thing to realize is that universities actually there's a price floor. They're not allowed to undercut private labs. However, we could ramp that up with additional services as well. And again, this is our initial business model that we've generated. We do hope to refine it and retune it with feedback from both businesses and universities as we develop this. Yes.
So as you're working with a university, let's say like a CSU, is there one central place that you can work with to figure out what it is they have that they can, you know, rent out? I'll use the word rent out. Or do you have to go to every single department, you know, in a university to figure out what's the inventory of stuff, you know, that's.
So the initial groundwork will be a bit more difficult because right now we do have a contact at CSU that's in charge of one of the larger departments, and we will start with them. And then by cataloging all their equipment, the services that they could provide, we could then identify which target markets or business or companies we could work with to aim towards. However, the initial goal is to catalog all the other departments as well, so we could provide more services to more different businesses. But once we lay that groundwork down, I believe it'd be a lot easier to replicate that with additional universities as we bring on. Yes.
Any negativity from universities? Would a university not want to participate in a program like this?
Everyone that we've spoken with, especially lab directors, are very eager to work with us. For one, because they're publicly funded, they want their services to be available to their local communities because it is your local tax money at work. And they kind of see that there is a big gap connecting the two, industry and academia. I have yet to hear about any pushback or negativity because, again, a lot of the equipment is underutilized, and also they're looking for ways, they're desperate for ways to generate more revenue to cover these service contracts. And especially because of COVID, where it turns out these costs are a lot higher for universities to implement COVID measures. They're always scrambling for more revenue. So, and for us, we're essentially the model is we eat what we hunt, right? We're not taking anything away from the universities except a portion of the revenue that we generate for them.
Great. Any more questions from the judges? No? Awesome. We can move on to audience questions. We have a couple minutes for any questions from the audience. Yes, in the back.
So we were very fortunate to have a strong connect with CSU, which is why we started working with them. If you know people in UNC that would be willing to speak with us, especially lab directors and administration, we'd be very happy to open up conversations with them.
So I also want to add that universities such as UNC will definitely benefit from this infrastructure that we are putting together. In the sense that entrepreneurs from UNC who might not have visibility into a high-end multi-million-dollar piece of equipment can come through the platform we are building, so that they have equal access to other bigger companies that might be in the same space. We just witnessed, as you asked the last question from our previous presenter about quality control. So for our entrepreneur we just presented to break into the bigger market, there's going to be a lot of quality control issues. He doesn't have labs, he doesn't have the expertise, but through this platform, he can get fractional access to quality labs in Boulder, in Denver, at CSU to do more quality control on his product. So once he has product quality control, he can now mass produce, he can access contract packagers who can, stick to his quality control. So it's no longer high quality, but it's actually, exactly what's in that package. So the package over there, we can actually have, like very clear nutritional quality control, and he doesn't have to start a lab. He can come through R&D floors. We get him access, equal access, like any other big players in the market, to this platform, and he can just pay just for the time he needs to do his quality control in his product. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Great. Let's hear it again for, I'm sorry, I forgot your name. RD Flows. So now we're going to take a quick short break to allow everyone to grab a drink, use the restroom, do what you got to do. We will continue with our next presentation in 5 minutes. So we will reconvene in 5 minutes. Please take some time during the break to visit the tables in the back of the room. And also don't forget that there are t-shirts on the back of your chairs that you guys are able to take. And Enjoy the break. We'll reconvene in 5 minutes. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed your little break. We will now begin with our fifth presenter from the Collegiate Division, your pianist.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for coming this pretty chilly day. I appreciate your presence here. My name is Albert Fernandez Ribeiro. I'm a doctoral student in piano performance here at UNC. And today I have the pleasure of talking about my project to you all. You're a pianist, always there, everywhere. I hope you enjoy. So, besides performing, of course, we love piano. It's such a beautiful instrument. We are actually much more important for musicians in general. For instance, let's pretend you are studying to be a singer. Well, Diana Dunrow is already a singer, but anyway, you're studying, you are in the process. So you get pieces assigned by your professor in the beginning of the semester, and then you start working in your music regarding phrasing, regarding text, and so forth. And you realize, wow, there is a piano accompaniment. How come it can make sense without an accompanist? But they realize that's very close to their jury. So what happens? Not only here at UNC, but in the other institutions I attended as well. Towards the end of the semester, close to their juries, they run across the building and grab the first pianist that comes. Like, can you play with me? Can you play with me? Can you play with me? Just a personal story. My primary emphasis is performance. I'm not a collaborative pianist, so this is not my primary emphasis. And despite of that, I play more than 150 pieces each semester without even sharing my name for people to find me. So this is pretty scary. They really need a pianist. And it doesn't happen only for singers. Like, let's say you are a trumpet player and you are working on your trumpet concerto. Wow, you do all those fast notes and high notes and so forth. But there is an orchestra. How come can you be invited to play with an orchestra while you are learning the piece? Then we invite a pianist to play a reduction of the orchestral part. So we are pretty in need for a musician. So here's the proof regarding numbers. It's a little bit out of date, but just to give kind of a sense of how it is. USA has more than 1,700 institutions that have music. More than 33,000 students enrolled in music every year, over 15 specializations. In bigger schools, it's even more, way more than 15 actually. And all those specializations need pianists. For instance, you would say, how come a composer would want a pianist? Well, if they are writing, let's say, a symphony, how come they will know how the piece sounds and how come it will be performed if they are students and they would not have an orchestra to play their piece? So we are also hired by composers and all the different specializations within music. So here's the solution. Your pianist always there everywhere. Uh, One day I woke up and then I realized, wow, this is not working. This is bad. Towards the end of the semester, so many people asking me to play with them. I'm too busy. It's not working. And then I realized, well, we have technology. How come we don't use that for our benefit? So my idea is to have a subscription service in which the person paying a small fee every month would have access to a short rehearsal of 15 minutes in which we would discuss musical aspects, so phrasing, agogics, dynamics, and so forth, all those very complicated names that only say to be tailored to the needs of the student and the teacher. With the piece beautiful regarding character that they choose. Um, and they would have a recording especially tailored to their needs. So they could practice from the very beginning of their learning process without having to run or try to find a pianist right close to the chair. And with that, they would have access to their pianists right in their devices, smartphones, computers, and tablets. So there's no need to rent rooms or to try to find common times for each one of the musicians. So it's way easier. Budget wise, it's pretty cheap. You know, we are musicians. We don't have a lot of money, so we don't require a lot of money either. Uh, so website development, I have experience doing so I can do it by myself, and of course, I will not pay myself. Uh, Recording equipment, this is the key of the thing because it should be high quality for us to have a good product. Otherwise, we lose our impact as a brand. Uh, so regarding marketing and advertisement, I was thinking about applying this money more a little later down the road using material that was produced with our first client. So this way we can assure that we have a high quality product with what we've been producing in the beginning of the project. The advantages between, if you compare this method and the old fashioned way of trying to grab your pianist, is it's more accessible because it's cheaper. When you grab your pianist, you need to pay hourly, you need to pay sometimes for renting the room, you need to find the common time for each one of you and perhaps your professor as well, so it's pretty complicated. It's more affordable because many times they pay me just to come and to perform the music, just run from the beginning to the end, and that is it. So they pay for my gas and for my time. If they have the recording, they can practice wherever they want, whenever they want. It can facilitate music outreach because if it's more accessible, if it's more affordable, they would be happy to make more music. And I think in this very complicated world that we have, everything that we need actually is music. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm open to questions.
For that, it was a wonderful presentation. Any questions from the judges?
Can this application use beyond university settings? I've got two kids that are in honor choirs at their school, and they're always trying to find accompanists to play with them. Could it be used in like elementary school settings, where maybe a school doesn't have the budget to pay for a accompanist?
Yes, I use numbers for a higher education because they are better. It's better documented. Let's say this way, but there are several private studios in which we are in need anyway, and especially younger musicians need that help of a pianist, and we are even more complicated to reach outside of the university context. Yes. So the rehearsal would be for each specific music, each specific song, because if you change a song of piece or anything, everything will change music-wise. And since the goal here is to offer the best and it being accessible, I think it should be tailored each one of the songs, not only the first one.
Hi.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit more about the money flow? Who pays who? Where does that money go?
You mean in this new way or the old-fashioned way?
The new way.
All right. So this money basically goes to who provides the service. So for instance, the beginning of the project, it would be me because I will be doing everything by myself. But I also have a backup plan. Um, well, since I think the clients are like large in number, if I have too many clients in which I can't attend all of them in the high standard I want to, I have also contacts with renowned pianists, like even faculty members of some American institutions, that would be willing to participate in this project. So the money would not go directly to me, but then we would start a bigger thing as things go on.
So it's just you. You're the team. This is your business. You're going to have specific clients that you work with. Is that how you envision this, or do you actually see it bigger than that?
You know, if I see it bigger than that, but everything that is big started small. And I think to ensure that it's successful, I would stick this small thing to me. So I'm in charge of how I want it to be. Of course, I have help of people. For instance, I have my wife who is a PhD student somewhere else. He helps with website development and keep everything on track and so forth. But uh, down the road, I envision things getting bigger since we have clients. And I envision also increasing the way that they have access to the service. For instance, having different levels of subscription if they want more pieces in a shorter amount of time, or even if they want different services. For instance, something that students are also in need is coaching. So vocal coaching or instrumental coaching, it also can be offered, and it will be so helpful for students in other countries you can't imagine. Uh, and also piano lessons can also be offered. But of course, those are ideas that can work if the audience accepts the platform.
Every time that
For who is with us online, a member of the audience asked how this subscription service would work. If it would be once a month, once a year, in the semester, or each time that I need to record something. My idea is to charge a fee of $20, in which they would have access to one piece of at least, actually, maximum of 5 minutes long. So it kind of have most of the repertoire for vocal and instrumentalists, and they would pay that monthly, so they would have access to more pieces of maximum 5 minutes each month. And my idea behind that is that it would give time for them to work with their teachers to see what should be tailored to their needs, because they should discover what are their needs before the final product is done.
So if there are any more questions from the audience, if you want to raise your hand, and then we'll have one of our student managers give you the microphone, just so that the people on our live feed and watching the recording can hear your question as well. Thank you.
Hi, yes. So I have a question about earlier you indicated that this was your own project, but you would be having some form of help at the initial stages.
Mhm.
So for anybody involved with you at that ground floor, is there any form of compensation that you plan for them, monetary or otherwise?
Well, she's my wife. I would compensate her with love. Sounds fair. Thank you very much. And with your help, let me be your pianist. Always there, everywhere. Thank you.
Great job. That was awesome. Now, let's welcome our sixth presenter from the Open Division, Horizon Verju Company.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being back here once again. My name is Kevin Murphy. I'm the founder of Horizon Verju Company. I'm a pre-revenue startup looking to make a big difference right here in the state of Colorado. Now, before we begin, a quick definition on Verju, since I know I have some new members of the audience here today. Verju is French for green juice. It is a non-alcoholic, highly acidic juice pressed from unripe wine grapes. My company resides at an intersection of a couple of significant trends happening right here in the state of Colorado. The first of which is the farm to table movement, especially as it pertains to restaurants. As someone who's been in the restaurant industry for the last 10 years, I've been able to witness this movement firsthand. And I think I've identified a significant opportunity. Allow me to explain. So one of the keys to a delicious and well-balanced cocktail or dish of food is going to be the use of acid, be it fresh lime juice in a margarita or a vinaigrette with roasted Brussels sprouts. And while farm-to-table restaurants have more local ingredients at their disposal than ever before, their main sources of acid still remain to be things like lemons and limes, which are shipped in from different corners of the globe, or commercially produced vinegars, which don't really add a whole lot to the farm-to-table story. To me, there's clearly a space here for a locally produced, eco-friendly ingredient that helps tell that local story. Also, we have a growing Colorado wine industry that's become more focused on quality than ever before. They're looking towards wine regions like Washington State or Sonoma County, California as inspiration of where they can be in the coming years. In order to gather that quality, they've had to become more stringent on the grapes that they use for winemaking. So if grapes are deemed not ripe enough, they go to waste instead of go to wine. The same token, while quality has indeed improved, these wines have yet to be fully embraced by the local consumer. The industry would love to see the day where Colorado grapes are celebrated much in the same way Palisade peaches are in the state. This is where I hope to come in. I want to celebrate those unused, unripe wine grapes, press and bottle that into verjus for use both behind the bar and in the kitchen. I know a month ago, this is the point in time where I offered samples to the judges. But this time I did want to open up to the rest of the audience. If you find me at the back table later on today, I'll be happy to provide samples for anyone who's interested. But for the meantime, let me carry on a little bit more with my business model. So like I said, I'll be collecting unripe wine grapes from Colorado vineyards. These come available a couple different times of the season. First is during the middle of the growing season, when quality-focused vineyard managers trim fruit so that way whatever grapes are left become better for winemaking. Additionally, at the end of the season, because Colorado can have a challenging climate, some grapes never achieve that ripeness necessary for making good wine. At both of these instances, these grapes are currently going to waste. So instead, my goal is to collect those grapes and press and bottle that into verjus. Now I already have agreements with some of these vineyards to utilize their equipment, thus removing a major barrier of entry for me into this market. So what makes me the right person to take on this challenge? To me, I think I have the right mix of background skills to capitalize on this opportunity. First, I have a depth of cocktail experience. I've been a beverage director at an award-winning farm-to-table restaurant in Chicago. During my stint there, I received accolades and had recipes published due to my creative use of farm-to-table ingredients like parsnips, radishes, as well as verjus. In fact, this is where I first fell in love with the product as a way to sustainably balance out beverages. Beyond that, I have a depth of experience with wine. I've been a wine director in the past. I've built relationships within this community, including over half a dozen grape growers within the state. That includes a couple of states' largest, like Talbot Farms and Sauvage Spectrum. I have their support as well as support of the Colorado Wine Board in this project. They would love to see more Coloradoans enjoying Colorado grapes. Beyond that, I also have a background in entrepreneurship. I have a business degree from Indiana University. I've been able to hone those entrepreneurial skills throughout my different roles in my career. Last but certainly not least is something I'm passionate about. I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to reduce the number of lemons and limes that are being shipped into the state. I'm excited for the opportunity to be able to contribute to that farm-to-table movement in the state. I'm excited for the opportunity to work with other small and local businesses in the state. So I intend to enter the market later on this year. My initial target market I've selected as the 50+ farm-to-table restaurants in the greater Denver area. Why this market? I think these are going to be the folks that are going to eagerly embrace a locally produced eco-friendly ingredient. I think these will be the folks that incorporate this into their day-to-day operations, thus helping me achieve a semblance of scale. And these restaurants tend to be more the trend-setting restaurants, helping me to influence and educate the market. I think I'm well suited to approach this market. Not only do I work at one of the more well-regarded farm-to-table restaurants in the Denver area, but because of my background, I'm comfortable consulting with chefs and bartenders on how to incorporate verjus into their programs. Now from there, I certainly see opportunities for growth, especially in the first 5 years of operations. Obviously, I'll want to achieve distribution throughout the rest of the state. But then aside from getting placements in restaurants, we're looking at getting placements in boutique shops, liquor stores, as well as more niche but influential markets like cooking classes and culinary schools. I also envision other product lines, things like single varietal verjus, say just based from Pinot Noir grapes, or infused verjus, infused with herbs, botanicals, and the like. Or perhaps ready-to-drink beverage, either house-made beverages I make myself, or maybe partnering with a local distillery and offering canned cocktails as well. Now, I know it's easy to be optimistic about a startup, especially at the pre-revenue stage. So I know it'll be imperative that I can identify and address challenges I might face along the road ahead. So I thought I'd talk through a few of those right here. First and foremost, with any new and novel product, there's a burden on that first mover to educate that market. I see tackling this in a few different ways. One are things that Horizon Verjus Company can do, whether it be consultation or publishing recipes on website and social media. Two is leveraging strategic partnerships like the Colorado Wine Board to help amplify my message. And three is executing a PR strategy. I know food and beverage writers are constantly on the lookout for that new and exciting ingredient to write about. I hope to provide that for them. I think with these three things, I can help get the market rolling in my direction. Now, once that does happen, that doesn't mean it's my market to keep. I'll need to position myself strategically in case of any competitors. To me, the best way to do this is by securing my suppliers. So there's a reason I'm working with some of the largest grape growers first. I think by investing in that relationship early on, it'll pay dividends for me in the future. And then once I've gained a little bit of momentum this first year in the market, I'll be looking to develop mutually beneficial contracts with these suppliers so that way they can not only liquidate their wasted grapes, but I can secure my supply for the long term. Now, I know I have some other folks in the beverage industry. They understand that margin and profitability can be a challenge in this space. So I want my flagship Verjus product to be cost effective for day-to-day use in the restaurant industry. I'll quickly be looking for ways to improve margins where I can. Things like a lower cost packaging option for bulk purchases of Verjus, or releasing some of those more premium lines like I mentioned earlier that I can offer at a higher price point. Now, if you allow me to take a step back for a moment, I think one of the cool things about this challenge, and I hope students are seeing this too, is you get to see startups in different phases of their growth. So I thought if I could tell a bit how I got to where I am today, it also might help illustrate where I can be in the coming years. So literally my idea is just a little bit over a year old. At the beginning of 2021, I was living in Northwest Indiana in between jobs as a restaurant professional during a pandemic. My light bulb moment happened when I was on a cold, gray, wintry run, kind of like today, but in the Indiana Dunes National Park. Like many entrepreneurially inclined folks, I half expected this light bulb to fade over time. But after I started talking to people, eventually getting in touch with some folks here out in Colorado, I realized it could truly be an opportunity. So over the last year, me and my wife have relocated here to the state. We've established my network, refining this business idea, and making a little small test batch of Verjus along the way. So that's what brings me here today. I'm incredibly proud and excited for the fact that I could be looking at my first commercial batch of Verjus later on this year. And so now I'm happy to go through revenue projections, look at charts and graphs. I also know at a pre-revenue stage, a better indicator of success for a company can be the idea, the person behind the idea, and the timing of that idea. So hopefully over the last 10 minutes, I'm going to illustrate for you that I have all these things in mind for a successful company. I'm thrilled by the opportunity to be able to reduce the carbon footprint of our local food and beverage industry, to help Colorado re-identify its cuisine to differentiate itself from other parts of the country, as well as collaborate with other small and local businesses throughout the state. I think by celebrating green grapes, we can envision a greener, brighter, and more delicious future on the horizon. So thank you so much for being here. It's really been an honor to be part of this, and I'd love to take some questions.
Thank you so much, Horizon Verjus, and I'll definitely have to try one of your samples. That sounds so delicious. We can now open up to any questions from the judges.
Yes, great presentation. If you walk away with some cash in this event today, what would you do with it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that gives me a good chance to kind of show some numbers I skipped over. So what I'm estimating for my first year costs is mostly based on the cost of acquiring grapes and developing my branding, marketing, and those types of materials. So because I don't have a whole lot of capital expenditures on equipment right now, I'll be working with wineries. I don't believe it'll take much for me to get up and off the ground. So really, every dollar that goes to me is going to go really far in getting me started. So, but like I said, it'll most likely be for acquiring that initial equipment, bottles, as well as getting that branding developed.
Can you remind us how many grapes it takes to make a batch for you?
Yeah. So 1 ton of grapes gets me about 150 gallons, which is 757 bottles. So, you know, in a standard vineyard, they don't quite have an estimate of how much grapes are going to waste. But my initial goal this year is 1 to 3 tons of grapes, which isn't a whole lot. With a small size vineyard in Colorado, I should be able to achieve that throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, that's my next question. How many grapes go to waste a year, do you know, in the state?
I do not have that figure.
Is there enough to get you to that 30,000 bottle mark, which was kind of down the...
Yeah, especially with the growth of the wine industry, more grapes are being planted every year in the state. So I believe I can grow along with this industry and partner with more and more vineyards through the state once I can prove with a couple of these vineyards that, hey, this can be a method for improving your bottom line, and I'll take those wasted grapes. And because more people are becoming more focused on quality, they're being more stringent on that grape quality, and that can help incentivize them as well. So,
and last question, what's the price to consumer on a bottle?
Yeah, so my price to consumer on the bottle, my goal for restaurant pricing is $10 per bottle. That pricing covers my margins, but also keeps it competitive on a price per ounce basis of like fresh lemon or fresh lime juice, thus helping that kind of give that value proponent to why you would switch to grapes versus what I have been doing in the past.
What size a bottle?
750 milliliters. That way, I'm basically gonna be buying those wine bottles off of the vineyards already, so what they have in stock.
Okay, so wine bottle.
Wine bottle.
The acidity, of course, produces shelf stability. What kind of shelf stability should we have from the product? Are we looking at years or months?
Yeah, other brands, have year statements. Others say after opening is 30 days. I'll be undergoing some of that testing once I have my first test batch, but definitely with that low pH, along with measures like sterile filtration, adding some minimal sulfites to keep that stable. We are looking at, unopened years, but I will have actual figures hopefully, soon.
My second question is, how are you going to enter the market? What's your strategy to get into all of the farm to table markets as well as the niche grocery stores?
Yeah, for sure. So on the front end, and especially like this first year or so, being a non-alcoholic product, I can self-distribute. So I live in the Denver area, so part of that geographic range is based off of where I can get to myself. Once I've kind of hit that plateau of needing distribution help, I will be in touch with most likely like wine distributors, since they have some of those contacts I'll be looking for most to help me with that like warehousing and distribution. But for the first year or so, it'll be a one-man show for that aspect.
So of those 50 farm to table target that you have, do you view this as a replacement of something that they're using today, or is this an addition based upon new recipes and whatever?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So a little bit of a substitute. So, like replacing some of those lemons and limes that they're shipping in, or replacement of, other like cooking wines that they get in from typically California, Spain, France, or something like that. So this is more going to be a substitute and something that they can help add to that farm to table story. You see these menus, they list all their purveyors. The server will tell you where these ingredients are coming from, and so this just adds to that story once again. And like the flavor profile can be different, but it can be used similarly, especially to like lemons and limes or cooking wine for sure.
Yes. Have you approached the 50 farm to table initial customers yet? Have you had conversations?
I've been in touch with about 10 of them. So I have, and they say, let me know when you have product. And once I do have product, I feel more comfortable because I think samples is really the best way to kind of educate and illustrate this whole idea. So that's, but yeah, as of right now, I have about 10 or so that I've been in direct contact with over the last year.
Hi. So, as I understand, Colorado wineries mostly are D2C and direct sales channels, yes? To the restaurants.
To the restaurants. The Colorado wineries, it's split. Some of them go through a distributor. Some do their own distribution.
But all of it is local, pretty much.
Sorry?
Very little. There's very little Colorado wine going outside of Colorado.
There's not a whole lot of Colorado wine going out of Colorado.
So your
correct.
channel, your sales channel is either D2C or direct to the restaurants. What prevents wineries from just shutting you out of supply of grapes and also channel by just selling the same product?
Yeah, no, that's a wonderful question. And so for me, my position will be to provide a value to those vineyards where I can, like I said, liquidate those excess grapes for them, and they don't have to go through the extra steps of distribution, especially this early stage where I'm building that market. They don't necessarily have the resources to do that. And then long term, once I'm established in that market, my goal is to be scaling with multiple vineyards. And so by having that greater access to scale, and it'll make it more difficult for another vineyard to enter with their own grapes, where I can be working with multiple vineyards, if that makes sense.
Sorry, but they already have that channel. They have direct sales to the same restaurants through wine, and you are going to be selling to those restaurants additional product, which is wine derivative.
Yes. No, yeah, absolutely. And part of it is, again, because I can have access to multiple vineyards, I can scale it to level that they may not necessarily be able to with just their grapes. A lot of the wineries, brands are also sourcing from similar vineyards, but so instead I'll be working to do the unripe grapes and building that market myself. And then that's part of the reason why developing these contracts on the earlier side, like we talked about last month, will be imperative to make sure they see that when they see my value and I had that security in the future as well. So yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Horizon Verdue Company, thank you so much. We will now continue into our next presenter, Gelsana Therapeutics. Let's welcome Gelsana Therapeutics.
Good morning. Thank you for having me today. I am Melissa Krebs, CEO and founder of Gelsana Therapeutics. We are a company that is fabricating novel hydrogel wound dressings to help heal wounds faster, and with a particular focus on chronic wounds. So to date, we've been focused on diabetic ulcers as a subset of these chronic wounds, which have tremendous toll and impact in this country. Many billions of dollars are spent every year on the care for diabetic ulcers specifically, and millions of new patients are forming these ulcers every year in the country and across the world. Every 20 seconds in this country, a person is losing a limb to an amputation due to a diabetic ulcer that became infected and would not heal. Just based on these statistics alone, we can see that better treatment options are desperately needed for these patients. So imagine being a diabetic patient and forming an ulcer. They typically start on the bottom of their feet, where there's a lot of pressure applied. And you go into your doctor and you know that due to your underlying diabetic condition, you have very high systemic inflammation, reduced ability to produce vascularization, and you know that this wound is going to be very challenging to heal. The first line of defense still today tends to be gauze, often alternating wet and dry gauze, and antibacterial ointments to try to keep infection at bay. We believe that we can develop materials that are much superior to the current state of the art for these patients and try to curb the dramatic acceleration into bad ulcers that are deeply infected. So we've been working on chemistry that can actually turn around the inflammation in these wound beds and help these wounds to heal faster. By providing these patients with faster healing, we can reduce the risk of infection of an open wound and therefore reduce the risk of amputation that these patients face. In initial animal trials, we have found that our materials are capable of accelerating the wound healing in diabetic animals. And in fact, we find that a single application of our hydrogel is capable of healing diabetic animals on the same order of magnitude at which healthy animals heal. This indicates that the material from which our hydrogels are made are capable of correcting that diabetic impairment to wound healing. So we're finding that these animals are healing about 1.5 times faster than our what we call untreated animals. They're just bathed in saline during their healing. If we put this on the scale of humans, let's say that a typical human diabetic ulcer would maybe take 8 weeks to heal if it's going to close. In this case, we're saying that we could close that wound instead in just a little bit over 5 weeks, which significantly reduces the risk of infection for these patients. In addition, our materials have very unique, versatile handling properties. And so they're very unique in terms of hydrogels in that we can extrude them from syringes or tubes. We can also stretch them across the wound bed. So they're very highly elastic hydrogel-based materials. And they do conform nicely to the wound bed. So we get gentle adhesion to the surrounding dry, healthy tissue, and it's non-adherent to the more moist wound underneath. So they're very easy to apply and to remove. Another major advantage is that based on the chemistry of these polymers, we can actually achieve highly sustained drug release over time. In initial animal trials, incorporating anti-inflammatory drugs into these materials, a single application of the material is capable of cutting the healing time in half compared to diabetic untreated animals. This is even faster than if we take the drug alone and inject it intradermally multiple times during the course of the healing. Additionally, we're finding that the healed tissue is actually stronger, mechanically stronger, and this indicates that we should be able to help patients reduce their risk of ulcer reoccurrence, which is another major issue with these patients. So our current business model is to first go to the market with an extrudable gel as a medical device. And we are also currently developing a pipeline of additional gels. These can include anti-infectives and drugs and also be supplied in different formats as well. We're ultimately looking to partner and license for our marketing and sales or pursue an early exit. Our intellectual property is strong, so we currently have 1 granted patent and 3 pending patents. This foundational IP was licensed from the Colorado School of Mines, where I am a faculty member. So all of this technology came out of my lab there. We will continue to file additional IP as we continue to innovate, create new delivery methods and new products. And we will copyright and trademark to secure our branding as well. So in initial conversations with our target users, which are physicians and nurses that treat these patients with these ulcers, we have found that they're very excited about three things in particular with our products. One is that the handling is dramatically unique compared to other hydrogel-based materials that they have available to them now. Another is this ability for highly sustained drug delivery over time, which is currently not an option with other products. And the third factor is that the chemistry of our materials is actually helping to reduce the inflammation in the wound bed, which helps heal these wounds faster just with the material itself. So the global wound care market is vast. It's currently valued at $22.3 billion. The subset of that that's estimated to be used specifically for the care of ulcers is valued at $8.7 billion. We are eyeing a first product market opportunity of up to $750 million based on the annual revenue of other hydrogel wound care products that are shown to the right as examples. So these products, along with others, do comprise our competition. We believe that we have advantages over our competitive products based on the handling, the ability for sustained drug release, and the ability to reduce inflammation in the wound bed. I would also call out your attention to the column labeled Regranix. This is the only currently FDA-approved biologic indicated for the treatment of diabetic foot ulcers. It contains a growth factor that helps the ulcers heal faster. However, it must be applied every 12 hours to have full effect. And so you're continually reopening that wound every 12 hours, which is a major disadvantage to that particular product and which physicians don't like. So in these pictures, you can see that we really are differentiated from our competitive products. The way that our materials handle is very unique. And again, we can do single applications of our material and provide sustained drug release. And so we're looking at reducing wound dressing bandage changes from right now an average of anywhere from 1 to 3 days to maybe as long as 7 days with our product. In terms of our key milestones, we have just closed on a seed round of funding, which we intend to have help us finish our product composition and development packaging, and then head towards manufacturing with looking at a 510K submission by Q2 next year. That said, literally yesterday we met with our regulatory consultants again, and they actually believe that our first product will be a class 1 medical device, which is 510K exempt. So I wasn't able to update the slide by today, but we're very excited about that, because if that remains the case, that we're a class 1 device, we can actually move our, instead of the 510K submission, gel launch and sales can be a full almost year earlier in Q2 2023. So this is very exciting for us. In terms of how we would use these particular funds from the challenge, of course, the regulatory pathway is very expensive. And so these would really help us with packaging and sterilization validation and the biocompatibility testing that we will do regardless of class 1 or class 2 medical device. We have put together a revenue growth model for our first 4 products. These will be extrudable gels and also sheets of products that will contain anti-infective or not. And we can see that under very conservative modeling, we're looking at up to $300 million by the year 2028. Our exit strategy is to look for acquisition by a strategic partner in the wound healing arena. And so I've listed some major players in this area along with recent relevant acquisitions below. And our team currently consists of myself as CEO and founder. I'm currently on sabbatical focusing on this startup. We have a board in place with Mike Freeman, the CEO of Innisphere Ventures, and Jim Kasich, the founder of Boulder IQ, which is the regulatory manufacturing sterilization organization that we intend to partner with for our first product. We have a scientist on staff, and we are currently working on recruiting a second one as well. And we've been fortunate to have very strong advisors helping us through this process in business development, regulatory and design, and clinical as well. And so in particular with clinical, David Armstrong has almost 600 publications on the diabetic foot ulcer and is considered an expert in the country in this area. John James is a local surgeon that is connected in with the Centura network in Colorado, including for wound healing distributors. And with that, I thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
So it sounds like the news you got yesterday that it is a class 1 device or product, I guess. Um, Everything moves up a year based on what we saw.
Well, so it'll technically be about 6 to 9 months. And so we account for 6 months from FDA submission to clearance. And then another couple of months to get into the gel launch and sales once you get the clearance news. So in this case, we don't have to wait for that. And so I would put it at 6 to 9 months. It'll accelerate us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you're targeting physicians and hospitals. What is the pricing model and how does that compare to what they're currently using?
Yeah, great question. So when we built out our revenue model, what we're assuming is that we can end up costing on a per patient basis the same per month as our competitive products. So we will charge more for each application of our material than our competitor products. However, we can get up to 7 days on a patient compared to the 1 to 3 that the other products are currently used for. And so at the end of a month, you're looking at about the same cost to patients, which we believe is important because hospitals are obviously extremely cost conscious. And so by being able to provide a superior product for the same and charge over the course of the month, we believe that will help significantly with adoption of this.
So what's the distribution strategy to get to your revenue?
Yeah, great question. So the early sales we're basing on key opinion leaders. So these are other doctors, surgeons, etc., that we've been talking to, wound healing centers, and even at-home wound care companies. So initial sales are through these key opinion leaders that will be familiar with our product. And then beyond that, we're looking at potential partnering for our distribution, or we may also consider an early exit. So as those sales start to take off and we see significant patient results, we believe that could be a good point for an early exit if we choose to go that route too.
So the FDA can be a really cruel mistress. A lot of really good and useful products get canceled or won't be accepted by the FDA and are basically left out to die in the market. If the FDA doesn't approve your product, how do you plan to deal with that and come back or fix it for such an occurrence?
Yeah, that's a great question. So part of the FDA process is identifying a predicate device. And so if you have identified a predicate device and you have a clear and compelling story that this is why it's a predicate and why you should be compared to that product. And then as long as all of your data is in place in terms of biocompatibility and so forth, we don't see an issue. And that said, if we are able to be considered a class 1 medical device, actually you don't even apply to the FDA per se. You just register your device with the FDA and completely bypass that as well. But yeah, there's also potential for cosmetic uses and other things that we've thought about that don't even involve the FDA at all. So that's always an option too. Thank you.
That was great. So now we're actually going to move into a short break, allow everybody to grab a drink. If you're leaving, don't forget that you can take the t-shirts on the back of your chair. They are free. Please make sure to grab one before you go. We will reconvene in 5 minutes for our next presenter. Awesome. Thanks everyone and welcome back. I'm really excited for the next presentation. Let's welcome our 9th presenter from the Collegiate Division, Audition Advocates.
I'm gonna make sure I know how to use this. Okay, cool, it works. Alrighty, well, thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Peyton Mazza. I'm a sophomore here at UNC, and this is Audition Advocates. So I just want to talk a little bit about the problem at hand here. So for those of you that don't know, college admissions for musical theater, acting students, or students interested in the performing arts is very different from a typical student. Not only do you have to get into a university academically, but you also have to audition for very competitive programs that typically only accept 10 to 20 students in each class every year. So because of this, it is very hard to get the training that you need to be successful in those auditions. And especially for POC students, lower income students, and students from underfunded schools, it is much harder than the rest. In 2019, Data USA showed that about 70% of degrees awarded for musical theater in college were to white students, 8% were awarded to Hispanic or Latino students, and 7% were awarded to Black students. And that just kind of goes to show the lack of diversity in college and educational theater settings. Not only that, there's also a lack of diversity in the professional theater world as well. In 2019, about 2/3 of the roles on Broadway were given to white actors, and almost 94% of directors were white. So I just will give a little bit of an overview of what my project is. So Audition Advocates provides free college audition coaching to students from lower income families, underfunded schools, and things like that in the Denver metro area. And we would have professional musical theater and acting professors or working professionals coaching these students. So there is some competition. There are some other foundations that do very similar things. However, theirs come at a very high cost. Coachings cost anywhere from $100 to $1,500 depending on the package that you choose. And while these services are super great and very helpful, they're not available to all students. And there are so many talented students who can't afford to use these services. And that's why there's that lack of diversity in the college theater programs. So for example, we have College Audition Project and Musical Theater College Auditions. Those are some of the most popular ones that a lot of my peers have taken advantage of. They even offer like SAT coaching and stuff like that. So they offer amazing services. It's just very expensive. So what we offer is free college audition coaching to those students. So they would have a free coaching service, and it would be provided by musical theater professors, acting professors, and working professionals in the theater industry. So they would have a Zoom coaching, at least 5, and they would be able to work one-on-one with those people and get the coaching that they needed. We would also have group master classes where they could learn all about the college theater audition process. So how to have a headshot, a resume, self-tapes, all those kinds of things that you need to be successful, as well as just professional audition etiquette, because all these things are going to set you up for success when you walk into that room and make an impression to hopefully get in a program that's going to be the next 4 years of your life and hopefully set you up for a career in the arts. So this is just a little template of our website. So we have the services, the clients, and the projects that we offer. So this is our services page. So once a student is in the program, they would be able to book their one-on-one coaching or group masterclass. So it's very accessible to students. And oops, sorry, not too far. And so they would be able to book those services very easily on the website. So as far as expenses go, it would be looking at about $150,000 for a first-year startup. This is kind of flexible depending on staffing and how many students we want to serve that year. So about $100,000 for our staff income, just depending on the size of the staff. about $10,000 to $15,000 for things like contingency planning, marketing, and then another $10,000 for office spaces and resources, Wi-Fi, all the things we need to get this up and running. And then it'd be about $20,000 for a class of 20 students. So about $1,000 per student. And that would cover their coaching, travel fees, audition fees, everything they need to be successful in those auditions. So basically the way it works is we would have an outreach team that would find schools in the Denver metro area that are underfunded or have lower income students there. And we would find those students who are interested, and they would be able to send us in a little audition clip. And then once we have that class of 20 students every year, they would be able to start that coaching. And as far as the funding goes, we would want to set up a sponsorship community. So people like individuals, families, companies could sponsor a student. So they could pay that $1,000, and then that would provide everything that the student needs for this audition advocate's journey. And we would really want to build a nice sense of community as well, so that the sponsor and the student could kind of build that relationship, and they could see their progress. They could see tapes of their auditions, find out where they get accepted. So it would be really cool to have that awesome sense of community built there. So why me? I am a musical theater major here at UNC. That was my audition like 2.5, 3 years ago. And so I went through the college audition process. I know how difficult and challenging it can be, and I'm really passionate about arts advocacy, but I want to use my privilege as a white person in the theater community to help provide those opportunities to students who did not have the same opportunities that I did in the audition process. Because I think in order to diversify the theater world, we need to diversify the college theater programs in the first place. So this is kind of just next step. We would get that team together. So board of directors, executive staff, outreach team, get that money so we can pay for all of that. And then I would really want to launch a social media platform or website, just because the audience that I'm catering to is high school age students. So I think social media would be a great way to reach out to them and find who's going to be interested in this kind of project, and then register as a nonprofit. And that would hopefully give us a good start. But that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I'm very excited for your feedback.
It was amazing hearing about your business, and I'm super excited to hear what kind of questions we have from our judges. Go ahead, start us off.
So you mentioned the sponsorship piece to cover the students' costs. Notice you got money up there. So how are you going to cover that other 130,000 that you need?
Yeah, great question. So I definitely want to do a lot of like grants, sponsorships, donations. I would reach out to places like Colorado Thespians. They're the Colorado High School Thespians Society for our state, and they do a lot of donations to arts enterprises in the state. So I would look at places like them. There's a nonprofit called The Fund. They also do some similar services helping students get into the audition. So I could also team with them as well. But I would definitely be a lot of crowdsourcing, asking friends, family members, things like that for money, or people like you who are business owners for those donations as well.
Great presentation. The thing that I would consider is looking at your financial portion. You had a slide on it, is looking at your estimates for how much things are going to cost. And the one that stuck out to me was your people. So you have a director, an outreach person, and then there was one other person, and you had identified $100,000 for that. So I would reconsider that if you're looking to offer a benefit package as well, especially with how competitive things can be.
Yeah.
So maybe evaluate some of your costs there, and then looking at adding into your cost structure the pay for your instructors, unless they're volunteer based.
No, so that would be part of the money that we would get, because we would want to be paying those instructors. So that would be like the cost, part of the cost for that $1,000 for the students would go towards the coaching for those professionals that would be providing the services.
Okay,
I didn't make that very clear, so
Thank you.
Yeah, it seems to me that maybe a partner in this would be some successful celebrities that are eager to give back to the community, or for whatever reason they're interested in. There's usually some probably tough relationships to establish, but I would think they would get it, if you will. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a suggestion.
I think on that end, as a UNC student, I'm sure you know Aisha Jackson,
Yeah.
who was the first Black woman to play Anna in Frozen on Broadway. She'd be a great one to reach out to, I would think.
Yeah.
Do you have any buy-in from coaches yet? Do
What was that?
you have any buy-in from coaches yet? Do you have any coaches that have said, hey, we're willing to do this and we love the cause?
Not yet. I hadn't reached out yet, but I know there's a lot of faculty at UNC that do a lot of coaching. That's part of their job is coaching the students here. So I would definitely reach out to people like them. We have Ryan Driscoll, our head of musical theater, another voice teacher, Colton Blair, Carrie Klofak. Those are all professors at the university that I would consider reaching out to just because they do have a lot of knowledge that I would want them to be able to offer those students.
And then how do you think you'll get over the barrier of in an underprivileged community, they already assume that they're not going to have the ability to get this type of coaching and help. How do you get past the barrier to let these students know that this is available?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely want to use social media as a tool for that. I think if I create a really strong social media presence and show that to the students there and kind of get that out in the world. I would also want to reach out with an outreach team. So they would be the ones reaching out to those high schools in the Denver metro area, gathering who's interested. Like we would pull from the theater department specifically to see who might be interested in continuing theater and higher education as well.
The two competitors that you mentioned, do they both operate as nonprofits as well, or are they for-profit companies?
No, I believe those are for-profit companies. Yeah.
So to that end, so your biggest differentiation is you're free versus them?
Yeah. Yep. So that's the
Okay.
whole point is that we would offer those free services because the services, that we offer are very similar to those services, but the services are extremely expensive. So we'd want to be offering those services for free so the students could even get the chance to audition before they even get into the programs. Great. We'll now open it up to audience questions. And all you have to do is raise your hand and we'll do it. No questions? Great. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. You did a wonderful job.
Great job. Now let's welcome our 10th presenter from the Open Division, Slick Tools. Let's hear it for Slick Tools, everybody.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Marshall. This is Sam, and we are Slick Tools. If you ask anyone who works with their hands for a living, they'll tell you the importance of having the right tool for the job. That's why if you walk into a bike shop, you'll see a full suite of bicycle-specific tools behind the mechanic's bench. But if you work in the solar industry, you'd be hard-pressed to find any solid brand or line of tools built around the specific needs of solar installers. Slick Tools is changing that with our full lineup of specialty tools for solar professionals. So what ties all of our products together? What are the key features? Efficiency. We're attacking inefficiencies in the workflow of installing and servicing solar systems. Safety. Solar has its own unique hazards, just like any trade. So all of our tools have some feature to address those hazards. For example, drop prevention, because solar installers usually work at height. Pride. Craftsmanship is super important to technicians. So we're replacing jerry-rigged solutions with professional ones so they can do their best work. And finally, quality. Every tool in our lineup has the look and feel of a premium quality tool and has the warranty to back it up. So let's talk about our tools. The first tool we came out with is called the AG Bender. AG is short for Animal Guard. It's a little known fact, but squirrels and birds love to build nests underneath rooftop solar panels. Installers keep them out by sealing off the perimeter of the array with a wire mesh screen. And they typically bend that wire mesh into a C-shaped channel to turn it from a floppy piece of material into something with strength and rigidity. Now, if you're an installer who hasn't heard of the AG Bender yet, you're doing this by hand. That means crimping a couple hundred feet of wire mesh with your fingers for every job. The Animal Guard Bender automates this process. You simply load a roll of wire mesh into the machine, set the dimensions however you like for your profile, and pull material through. It saves our customers about 15 minutes per job, and the installers love it because it spares their wrists and fingers from strain injuries. Our latest tool is called the Mod Spacer. Mod is short for solar module. So whenever you install solar panels, whether it's a small rooftop system or a vast utility scale solar farm, you need to leave a small gap in between the solar panels. That's for airflow and to allow for thermal expansion. Now, currently, most installers will use a spare bolt or just whatever's in their pockets to stick in that gap and set the spacing between modules. Then they fasten down the panels and remove their temporary spacer. The problem is it's very difficult to grasp the head of a bolt, especially when it's being squeezed by two 40-pound solar panels. The Mod Spacer simply replaces that bolt. It's easy to grasp and remove when you're done spacing, and it's made of plastic, so if you drop it, it won't scratch the panels and it won't hurt someone below you. To maximize efficiency even further, several mod spacers can be attached to a piece of standard electrical conduit like this. So you can position this and stage up to 3 solar panels at a time before having to reposition them. So what makes us think we can compete with established tool brands like Craftsman or DeWalt? First, it's our specialization. The tools we're developing are a huge pain in the butt for our target customer, solar installers, but they seem like a very niche market for the big players to get involved in. Now, of course, that raises the issue of we have a relatively small market that we're dealing with. So we do need to make sure all of our tools are really spot on and address real pain points. That's where our network comes in. We're partnering with the best installation companies and solar technicians in the industry to come up with and validate all of our products. And finally, it's our team. I started my career as an engineer in the bicycle industry and spent 6 years serving as a designer, manufacturing engineer, and manager before getting into solar. I've spent the past 3 years designing and installing residential solar systems and developing utility scale solar racking systems. Sam graduated from CU's business school and worked as a commercial solar installer before joining Slick Tools back in October. And Jenna is our manufacturing contractor. She's a whiz with a CNC machine, and she makes 100% of our products here in Colorado. All right, I'll hand it over to Sam.
Thank you, Marshall. So we already have 10 customers for the AG Bender and have sold close to 40 units, but customers aren't just revenue drivers for us. They actually act as a network of advisors that we use for feedback on prototypes and to get new ideas for products. Our earliest adopter and biggest customer is Namaste Solar. They're a local Boulder installer, and they bought 15 units, one for each of their residential crews. So there's around 10,000 crews in the US, which gives you a good idea of the scale that this could reach. In addition to those industry-leading advisors, we're lucky to get the help from some business folks that we know at CU Boulder that are acting as advisors for us, namely in the Deming Center for Entrepreneurship. Now, Slick Tools is a B2B company, and we're mainly doing direct sales at the moment, but we do want to transition into more of a mix between distribution and direct sales. We're in the final stages of a partnership with a distributor and hope to continue that soon. As for manufacturing, we want to produce as much as we can in-house. We're proud to be a Colorado company and want to keep close tabs on quality. We do realize that some things are just outside of our core competencies, such as the mod spacer, for example. We hope that this will be an injection molded tool in the future. So we will outsource those sort of tasks. Now, the way we've been reaching our customers is to research US solar installers before segmenting that list and targeting our ideal customers for certain products. We then reach out to those customers via calls or emails. We realize this isn't efficient, so in the future, we want to transition into more of a hands-off sales approach where through marketing and advertising, we have customers come to us and purchase products on our e-commerce site. One interesting thing about this industry is that our customer is rarely our consumer of the product. For example, for the AG Bender, the biggest champions of the AG Bender are the installers or the service crews, but they don't have any buying power or decision making in the company. So we find that there's a gap between the people we're selling to and the people that are using our tool, and we're still figuring out how to exactly position our message to basically close that gap. As for competitors, there are a couple in the industry that are focusing on very specific issues and have single solutions for those issues, such as PD Pallet and Track Belt 360. The biggest concern for us is Solar Tools USA. We are competing on a product level, and they're bringing out a full lineup of tools just like us. The interesting part here is we're actually in an alliance with Solar Tools. They're acting as a distributor for us, and we think that in the future there's enough problems to solve in this industry that we can coexist, but we're keeping a close eye on them. So I want to walk you through some future projections that we have. As for the mod spacer, we're launching the tool in Q2 of this year, so very soon, and it will act as a second revenue stream in addition to the AG Bender. By the end of 2022, we want to have saturated the Colorado market. There's around 170 solar installers in Colorado alone. And in the years to come, we hope to saturate up to 25% of all residential crews. This would provide us a gross profit of around $100,000 for this tool alone. Now, the AG Bender, we've realized it's a very disruptive technology, and we need to focus on early adopters before being able to market it to the mass market. So that's going to be our goal for the remainder of 2022. In the years to come, we do hope that word will have spread around the AG Bender and our marketing efforts will have ramped up. In addition to that, we're hoping that Animal Guard will become more of a norm in the industry, and that we can scale our sales towards mass market. So Marshall and I have been doing great. We have a very diverse skill set, but to bring Slick Tools to the next level, we'll need some help, especially in engineering and marketing. So we've estimated that for the remainder of 2022, we need around $35,000 to start these two positions as contractors, which will help us achieve all those goals that we've set. We're Slick Tools. We provide specialty tools for solar installers. In 5 years, we want installers to be able to open a tool bag and see a full lineup of specialized tools slick tools. So thank you. We're excited for any questions you have.
And I love seeing the products.
Thank you.
Any questions from our judges? Yes, go ahead, start us off.
The AC Bender, is it trademarked, copyrighted, patented? Anything to protect that asset so someone else doesn't knock it off?
Yeah, the AG Bender, the name is trademarked, and we have already received our first office action from our utility patent that we filed a couple of years ago. So yeah.
2 questions. First, what's the purpose of the screw on the spacer?
Great question. The screw is for when you attach it to a
got it.
piece of conduit, so you can position them wherever you like along the conduit.
Okay. And second question, for the AG Bender, is this a one-time purchase, or do customers require maintenance on it, or add-on products outside of like the spacer, but for that specific product?
Yeah, for the AG Bender, the tool lasts quite a while. We actually sold the first one almost 2 years ago, and we check on them occasionally, and they don't seem to wear out. We do have some features. There's basically one spot that we expect could wear out over time, and we already offer service parts on our website for that, even though no one's ever bought them. So it's pretty much a one-time purchase.
So you are really looking for your price for customer acquisition, not necessarily return customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Although we have had a number of return customers, typically what happens is someone will rent or demo the unit, decide they like it, buy 1 or 2, and then as their business grows, which every solar business is growing right now, they continue to purchase more for additional crews. We actually got an email yesterday from a Canadian customer who just said they're growing, they have another crew, and they want to order another AG Bender.
So your challenge is reach. I mean, you got a great product, got great products. So the question is, how do you get out there in the market from a distribution standpoint, right? So the wire manufacturer, have you guys approached them? I mean, to me, it's an ecosystem of partners that make up the solar industry. And how do you leverage the people that are out there on a scale standpoint to get them your product in their hands? That's really what this is about, because you guys have got a great product, you're a great team. It's get the word out, because I just, it's hard for me to imagine that these things wouldn't sell like crazy if people knew about them and the benefits of them.
Yes, absolutely. No, great question. And you make a good point that we need to be working with the mesh suppliers, for example. So there are a couple in Colorado actually that we're planning on approaching soon. We've been working on the distributor relationship recently, and once we have that figured out, we want to approach the mesh manufacturers. Beyond that, we're going to trade shows and are hoping to show and tell the tool, basically. We're thinking that will help spread the word a lot. And in addition to that, as I said, we need help with marketing. We really need to ramp up our efforts there to get the word out. So,
have you guys done a business model canvas? Are you familiar with that?
I'm not.
You should. We can talk, but you should definitely consider that, because that builds out your whole approach to the market, everything. But I think that's really going to help crystallize where you guys need to go with your business and who you need to spend time talking to. Okay.
Sounds very interesting. We should chat after.
Yeah. So my question is, so when you go out and you make a sales call, what's the number one thing you hear why they won't buy? What's the top thing that leads to them saying no?
I think the biggest problem is that the substitutes are too easy, and the reluctance for changing processes in this industry is high. You can imagine solar installers are super busy, and to have one champion in the in the company is great, but it needs to trickle down to the installer level, which is the hard part. Basically, it takes a lot of time and effort to change a process in a company that's moving this fast and is doing day-to-day tasks. But we have found that once customers try our tool, they love it. So that's why we implemented our rental model, for example, which we're hoping to break down as many barriers to trying this thing. And our conversion rate has been great. So we're just hoping to get it into as many hands as possible and let the tool speak for itself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are you seeking investment to grow, or are you just bootstrapping this together? How's that working at the moment?
I think until the pitch a month ago, we hadn't thought, we're self-funded and hadn't thought too much about looking for investment, but seeing some of the other great companies here and how they explained what they would do with the money got us thinking. So that's why we could certainly use the help in terms of hiring an engineer to execute on our pipeline of other product ideas, as well as, I think we're struggling a little bit with marketing. So yeah, we have a $35,000 ask right now, and we certainly see room for growth beyond that.
Great.
Probably more of a comment than a question, but from a marketing standpoint, just as you mentioned in the presentation that, oftentimes people that are buying this are not people that are using it. Probably a good way to talk to management or, the owner would be to look at it from an OSHA standpoint and workers' comp claims and how this would, the vendor specifically might affect and reduce that and have impact on insurance as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We've looked at that a little bit and found that it was quite difficult to put a number on the cost of injuries, but I think we got to revisit that.
So are there any other industries where they're doing stuff like this, bending something,
Yeah, that's a great question. I always think that someday someone will tell me, hey, that looks just like such and such, or they could use that here or there. The only thing I've heard for this machine would be, I know electricians doing like big commercial buildings need to create wire trays to run a large number of cables. And I haven't looked into that yet. I think there might be a similar machine, or I'm not sure how they do that, but yeah.
Usually the loud guy. Are you manufacturing yourself, or is it an outsourced manufacturer? And as you scale, how does that change?
Yeah, so we started out, I was building all of these myself. The mod spacer right now we're 3D printing, but we're going to move to injection molding. And right now Jenna is trained to basically if she works part-time, she can produce about 10 of these a week, which is enough to satisfy our medium-term sales projections. So we feel pretty comfortable continuing to do this one in-house.
Great, thank you, judges. We'll now take any questions from the audience. Just remember to raise your hand and the mic will be brought to you. Don't be shy. No questions? You have one?
This one's made out of HDPE plastic, and we actually use a lot of sort of off-the-shelf components like electrical, strut channel, and conduit for some of the frame materials. And we've had installers tell us they kind of like that because they're seeing materials that they already know and trust, I guess.
So when you said people sell and people use tools, how are you trying to close the gap on that?
Could you repeat the first part?
In your presentation, you guys said you're trying to sell to people and then the people who use the tools. So how are you going to try to close the gap from the manufacturing standpoint to the consumer side?
Yeah, great point. I think it's going to be a matter of who we target and how we convey the message. So first off, there's a difference between the size of companies. If it's a small company, a small installer, the people in the field might actually make buying decisions. So at that point, there is no gap. If it is a big company though, then, you know, it's either a matter of targeting, as one of the judges mentioned, you know, the procurement teams or management, and bring them a message of safety, for example, something they care about, versus if it's installers or people in the field, we talk about efficiency, and, you know, they can relate to this because they know how much it sucks to bend 150 feet of this mesh by hand, right? So I think it's about who we target and how we bring the message across.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, we'll take a question from the judge.
This machine sells for $800, and without revealing too much about our costs, we have a healthy margin, and the price is really driven by the value our customers see in it. We don't really have to worry about our costs.
Great. Any last questions? Yes, in the back.
So I know that with a lot of companies, what they do is they have one product that is higher in price, but has more features for possible businesses or consumers in general who have the capability to purchase that higher end product, but then they have a product that is a little bit more reasonable for consumers and businesses, but has less features. Have you ever thought about doing that to kind of expand your ability to market your product?
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think that we definitely have found that some installers are running a bit more of a shoestring, you know, tight budget operation than others. I think, you know, if the mod spacer and the AG bender are pretty good examples of the spectrum that we're looking to bracket here. So the AG bender is a complicated, you know, big machine, and it's expensive. The mod spacer is going to sell for $15 for a 5-pack or something like that. So I think that's a nice way to provide something that really the mod spacer, 100% of residential and many commercial and utility scale installers can make use of that, and it's super affordable. So by having products at both ends and then starting to fill in between, we're definitely hoping to draw someone to the website, have them notice, hey, they sell something that addresses this other problem I have, and then build it up from there.
Great. Thank you, Slick Tools. Let's hear it for Slick Tools one more time. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, you guys did awesome. Great. So we'll go for our final presenter of the day from our collegiate division, Eclecticism. 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 That's how you say it.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. It's been so great to hear everyone else's presentations, and I'm so excited to share mine with you. My name's Kennedy, and I'm the owner of Eclecticism. It's an online thrift store that donates half of the money from every sale to nonprofits that help the environment. So, oh, wait. Sorry. Okay, so I aim to help prevent clothing waste from ending up in landfills while also offering customers that online shopping experience. And because it's an online shopping experience, it makes thrift shopping a little bit easier. And my main goal with Eclecticism is to help customers help the environment. So every second, one dumpster truck full of clothing waste is sent to the landfill to be burned or buried. And Eclecticism aims to be another company where customers can give their clothes a second life instead of having it end up in the landfill. So, sorry, when I was doing this presentation, I prepared it for 10 minutes instead of 5, so my bad, but we're gonna rush through it a little bit. So in the first year of Eclecticism being launched, I donated almost $800 and I myself earned about $700. And about half of this money was from an in-person event that I had in downtown Denver. And so if my in-person events increase and sales stay the same along the same lines as that first in-person event, then this is kind of the growth projection for the next 4 years. And to get into my competitors a little bit, I obviously compete with all fashion brands, but I'd mainly consider myself to be competing with other thrift stores. The ARC in 2020 earned about $75 million in revenue, but the number that I'm really concerned with is this one, and they offset 1.2 billion pounds of CO2 in 2020. And although these other thrift stores are my competitors, I really consider myself to be learning from them because the main goal of Eclecticism is to offset numbers of CO2 like this in the future. And yeah, it's cool to earn money, but it's also cool to see what a big impact secondhand stores can have on the environment. So, sorry. Okay, so currently I am partnering with other small businesses and I'm thinking of ways to get children involved in sustainable fashion. And for this summer, I hope to have at least 5 in-person events. And to do that, I just kind of need to rent out the booth spaces and prepare the merchandise and advertise on social media accordingly. And so I know you're all thinking like, why should we invest in her or something along those lines? And I wanted to share with you this graph. To produce one cotton t-shirt, when one cotton t-shirt is produced, that produces 15 pounds of carbon into the environment. And 2 billion t-shirts are sold annually. That's just what's sold. That's not even just what's produced. So if you're investing in me, you're investing in secondhand fashion, you're investing in your future, you're investing in your children's future, and you're just kind of investing in a sustainable future overall. So if I were to get money from this, I would use it towards marketing expenses. For this next year, I would like to increase Instagram posts. So I'd like to promote 1 Instagram post per month, 5 days for each post, and that's about $10 a day. So that would be an annual cost of about $600. I'd also like to pay for SEO optimization to get my site ranked a little higher on Google. And that would be about $1,700 to do that. And for year 2, I'd like to continue promoting those Instagram posts. And I also use Weebly as like my CMS for my website. And they send out marketing emails that cost about 10 cents. And I'd like to start sending those to customers. I'd like to target about 50 customers a month, send out 1 email monthly. So that's about $60 for the entire year. And yes, so that's a very quick presentation. Eclecticism is eco-friendly, it's stylish, it's affordable. And thank you all for listening to me talk about something I'm really passionate about. And I'm excited for all of your questions because I know that was super quick. So
that was super great. What a great presentation. Who would like to start us off? Judges?
Yeah, you talked 2 different things. You talked about a website, but the majority of your growth and your future growth is all based on in-person events. Is there a website launched? Have you sold much on the website? Are you seeing that grow?
yeah, so the website has been launched for about a year, and I partly chose that because I'm also a college student, so it just kind of, I can't rely completely on in-person events, and I still wanted to get this idea out there. There is growth there. I mean, half of the growth was from the in-person event, and the other half of the money has been just earned from sales on the website. So that's why my main goal is to focus on marketing, because I feel like the website would really grow a lot if people just knew about it a little more, if the Instagram was a little bigger, just kind of, yeah.
Where do you get your inventory from?
It's all donations from just people in the community. So I accept it from whoever wants to donate. People from out of state have given me clothes, a lot of family members, a lot of friends. Some of my own closet is in the inventory.
So the business is people donate clothing to you and then you sell them at booths or via the website.
Yeah, and all prices on the website are under $10 too. I just try to make the goal with eclecticism was to make eco-friendly and like environmentalism affordable to everyone that wanted to participate, and just kind of more of a second nature thing. So they're shopping secondhand and they're also donating to the environment at the same time, pretty mindlessly, I'd say.
And so how are you going to scale this to make it bigger than just yourself?
I think the next step for me would be to hire someone who would be more of a social media coordinator or advertiser, to get the word out there. And I guess like very long term in the future goals would possibly be to open up a small shop or just have in-person booths more at like more of a consistent rate, maybe like once a week instead of once a year. So
How do you, I've just been dealing with this with the Marshall Fire victims, and people brought amazing donative intent,
Yeah.
but they brought stuff that nobody wants, right?
Yes,
So how do you deal with the quality of your donations?
yeah, that is a great question and one that I love to answer. So any clothes that are like torn or stained, or that I can't fix in any way, I make them into blankets for the Denver homeless population. And if it's just like small scraps of fabric, I use it as like pillow stuffing kind of. So I do that. And it's like you can donate stuff to dog shelters too. Some people have given me like towels, and that's usually where stuff like that goes. Yeah.
So what would you say the big distinction is, or the differentiator between what you're trying to do and let's say the ARC?
Yeah, I'd say the ARC and other big thrift stores, of course, have like a broader customer base, a broader selection of items, and a bigger impact on the environment, of course, whether that's intentional or not. But because I'm a small business, I can really work with the community, and I can take any input that's given to me and really incorporate it into my business. I met a family through UNC, and she contacted me and she said, I really want my children to be able to participate in sustainable fashion. And I said, okay, and now we have an event planned so that children can come and kind of revamp clothing, I guess, and just kind of see what it means to give clothing a second life instead of throwing it away. So there's been a lot of instances like that that are really cool to see as a small business owner. So community, I guess, is the main answer.
Just a question about the marketing. Is that going to be solely focused on customer acquisition, or is that also going to include, getting more clothes donated?
I have a lot of inventory from clothes donations, so I'd say mainly customer acquisition at the moment, at least until the inventory kind of dies or depletes a little bit. Yeah. It's kind of in between. I've struggled on a way to define it because I do donate half of all the money that I'm making. So I'm a little, I don't know how to define it, honestly. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Any other questions from the judges? We have another like 5 minutes, so you guys have time. No, we'll open it up to the audience then. Yes. We'll wait for a mic, sorry.
Where do you store your inventory, especially as the company's growing?
Yeah, so I recently came to UNC, and prior to the beginning of this school year, I lived with my parents, and I'm so grateful for them because they let me store all of the inventory in their basement. So it's, it's more of a casual operation sometimes just because this is a relatively new thing. But there's procedures in place to make sure that all the clothes are clean and stored properly and everything that comes with owning a business.
So when somebody goes to purchase off of your website, I know that you said that the products are all under $10, which is amazing, especially for college students who don't have a whole lot of money. But with going off of a website, you have things like shipping and handling, and if you're shipping it to another state, the shipping costs may be different than they are here in Colorado, or if you're shipping it international, if somebody international finds your website, how does that play into the overall cost?
So I have a flat shipping rate of $8, and that does kind of rack up the price a bit, unfortunately, but shipping is it can be a really expensive cost, especially when I'm shipping out of state or hypothetically internationally. I do sales often though for like free shipping or shipping on items that are less than $3 or I don't know, stuff like that to kind of make it as cheap as possible, as frequent as possible.
So are you just selling clothing?
I am, yeah. I think pretty soon I'm going to try and open it up to shoes and accessories is the next step for product-wise.
Okay, so then my question would be how you plan to offset like people that want to donate to you, but they're not going to donate because like Goodwill and ARC accept like furniture and like games and like DVDs and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be easier for them to just donate to like the ARC or the Goodwill. So how do you plan on attracting more people to donate to you for just clothes when they can go somewhere else and do like a bunch of things in one?
That's a good question. I'd say I do get a lot of inventory as is, as like just me personally running it. Like it's a lot to handle, so I haven't really thought about how to incorporate even more items to be sold. But I think that really like voicing to people that I'm about the community and I donate a lot to like homeless, like the homeless in Denver and just like shelters in general, and just maybe voicing that would make them want to donate to me. They'll like, because you can actually see where these clothes are being put, like they're either being sold on the website or you can see them being made into blankets, and it's just a very personable experience. And I would hope people could see that and just see that their donations are actually doing something instead of ending up in Goodwill in the back room or something like that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, but just advice. Take in jewelry, not gold or silver, fake jewelry. But like I've seen somebody literally blow up off this. Like the how would I say it? Like the sapphire, like you know how you see like a green square, like this the fake sapphire, like stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Not the gold or silver, like stuff like that. Just
Mhm.
advice.
Yeah. A lot of people have donated jewelry. I'm just kind of waiting until it's like enough so that I can kind of create like a section for it on my site before I just sell like 3 pieces, you know? Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kennedy.
Thank you guys. Thanks so much.
Yes, definitely check out her website. So thank you so much to all of our presenters today. The final presentations have come to an end, and the judges will now score each presentation and decide who the winners are. The winners will be announced at the conclusion of the judges' deliberation. We will now let our judges head back to the deliberation room and start the next part of our program. Welcome back. Thank you to our finalists that presented today. Before the winners are announced, we'd like to thank our sponsors one last time. Thank you to the High Plains Library District, City of Greeley, JBS, Envirotech, KUNC, 477 Distilling, Warm Hugs, and Crabtree Brewing. Let's hear it for them. Our judges had time to deliberate and have decided who our winners are for the collegiate and open divisions. I'd like to invite our head judge, Bill Dietrich, and director and student president of the Entrepreneurial Challenge, Team Dallas Everhart, and Halaki Janae, I always say her last name wrong, even though we're like best friends, to the stage for the announcements of our finalists. Or actually, I'll be announcing our finalists, but I'd like to invite them to the stage. You guys can clap for them. Great, so we'll start with our open division. Everybody ready? Yes. Yay. Our judges have narrowed down the final 3 winners. I would like to congratulate the following open division winners of the 2022 Entrepreneurial Challenge. Look at my list. In 3rd place, RD Flows. You guys can come on up and shake the hands of our fellow entrepreneurs. Congratulations. And in 2nd place of our open division, Slick Tools. Congratulations, you guys. An amazing idea as well. And now for our 1st place winner, Gel Sauna Therapeutics. Awesome. Let's give one more round of applause to our open division. Thank you everybody for who competed today in the open division. Now, without further ado, I would like to congratulate the following collegiate division winners of the 2022 Entrepreneurial Challenge. So we have a tie for 4th place. In 4th, Your Pianist and Eclecticism. You can stand up there, yeah. Group photo. Congratulations. I just want to say I've been very impressed with the collegiate division this year. The competition was very tight. You guys were amazing. And in 3rd place, we have Audition Advocacy. Congratulations. Should we do like a little drum roll for second place? Ready? Second place, Blue Path. Don't you guys just love her pants? Congratulations, Blue Path. And so last but not least, our first place winner, Submission Nutrition. Thank you everybody who competed this year. This concludes this year's finals. Judges and participants, please stick around so we can get some photos. So if you're a participant, please make sure you stay around. Thank you all so much for attending today's event, and I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday.